Good morning. Happy hump day, everybody. Good morning, Will. How we doing?
Not too bad. Just running around like a chicken with my head cut off.
Yeah, it feels like you're operating 9 different pieces of machinery right now.
I need the Doc Ock arms right now is what I need. I need to be able to type into a bunch of different things.
It's pretty wild to watch you operate. I'm sitting over here and you're looking at one screen, then you switch over, you're hitting this button, you're fading this up, you got to get your mic on.
I've got 5 screens going right. Nope, 6. I have 6.
You seem like you're all over the place, and I came into the parking lot this morning, getting into the building, and I parked right next to you. I'm assuming it's your car, it's Washington plates.
Yeah.
And I went, I think this guy is living in his car right now. There's like 9 shirts hanging in the window. There's hats on the back like it's a hat rack. And I'm like, I think it speaks to what he's been doing for us at the fan lately, filling in with everybody.
Well, I was watching the parents' house. I was watching my dog. My parents, they're just gallivanting. Apparently, once your kids are off the scholarship plan.
They're fully retired, your parents?
No, not at all.
Oh.
It's just they're both teachers.
Oh, okay.
And so my brother, he's off in Ellensburg. He's doing his own thing. I'm here doing my own thing. So they're just gone all the time. I've basically lived in their house for the last month or so. First, it was like, Dad's going to Vegas. Mom's going to New York. Then they're both together taking a vacation down to California. They come back. They decide, well, we miss your brother. We need to go visit. So I've just been at the house taking care of my poor dog, making sure he's all diapered up. And then today it was like, I got to move back into the apartment, and it's either do I take all my stuff with me now or do I come back after work? I'd rather just take it all with me.
Sure.
But yeah, I look like a dumpster fire. You might think that I live under the 405 if you just looked at my car.
That's okay. I've been there before. I know what that life is like.
Under the 405?
Well, no, not under the 405, but in the car, just having everything, and people going, man, are you living out your car right now? Kind of, a little bit. Did you say your dog is in diapers?
Yeah. He's getting sad. He's old.
How old is that dog?
Peanut is 14.
Is that a big dog?
Oh, no, he's a cockapoo. I have a purse dog.
Oh.
Very manly, yes.
14 for those dogs. Don't they live to like 16, 18, or am I wrong on that?
No, I mean, he's starting to get... This is around when we kind of started to know, like, hey...
Uncomfortable feelings and conversations.
Yes, yeah. They're really starting. Well, because all of a sudden, every time you pick him up, now there's a new bump. Or like the bump that was on his nose, now he looks like Rudolph, and it's one of those, you're looking in his eyes and you can tell like he's pretty sure you're in front of him, but he doesn't totally
you keeping
know.
This dog alive?
Yes.
Is this a point where the dog probably could be going to the heaven?
No. But it's definitely like, if you've got a grandparent and they're like right around that 80 to 85 mark,
and
where
they're pooping their pants and they don't know who you are.
No. He's not pooping his pants.
There's bumps everywhere.
He's not pooping his pants. He just can't control it when he sleeps.
Okay.
It's an issue.
But yes, in the pants. Yes, all right. So kind of is.
Well, again, it's only pee right now. It's the front diaper. The dog diaper doesn't look like the human diaper.
How old are you again? You're 20.
I'm 26.
You're 26.
Yeah.
So you were 12 when you got this dog?
Yeah, that sounds right. 7th grade.
This is a hard thing to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I had to fight for him. It was a whole thing. I got him for my birthday in 7th grade.
You know, I lost my dog. My wife got a dog right before I met her. Her ex-boyfriend coincidentally bought it for her. And then they broke up. She kept the dog. And then she met me. And I knew that dog from when it was 1 year old. And we had to put her down a couple years ago. And I'll tell you right now, hardest thing I've had to do. I've had a very privileged life to say that, but like really emotionally, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I still haven't recovered. She's still in my background on my cell phone, and I have another dog now.
That's got to be awkward. Does your other dog look at the photo and be like, hey, dude, what's going on here?
I think he's seen it, but he's kind of an idiot, and
aware.
It was more of a forced situation than it was us like, hey, let's go pick a new dog. I didn't want a new dog, and that new dog just kind of fell into my lap.
It was like, this has to happen.
Yeah, it was kind of like, hey, this has to happen, or this dog may not have much of a life, and it's really young. But, yeah, it's never easy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be, like, uncomfortably old dog you're kind of keeping it around instead of...
No, but he's also not there yet. Like, I'm not...
You're kind of making it sound like that dog is
no,
to that finish line.
He has his moments. He's
Okay.
like he's running on fumes, but he's still in the race. Like he doesn't
Like
need,
a Disney car.
Yeah, like he doesn't need
putzing
stairs
around.
to go up and get on the couch. Like he can still run and jump up on the couch. He goes for walks every single day.
Okay.
His vision just isn't great. Like in Madden, if he had a 99 vision as a running back, he's probably closer to like 65.
What's his
now.
overall rating? Let's say it's NCAA football, what is your dog's overall rating? Like a 70 something?
Yeah,
Not the worst,
he
but
might
not
be
great?
flirting. Yeah, he's probably like a Mountain West recruit.
Okay.
Like if he was a
So like
Power
a high
5,
3-star and maybe like a really high 2 flirting with a 3?
I'd say high 2 flirting with a 3. He might like sneak in to a Power 5 or Power 4 team, but it
Sure.
would be like he got into like Indiana.
Yeah.
It'd be one of those. He'd be like the worst recruit at Indiana, or he could be like a mid-tier recruit at Boise State.
Okay.
You know, he's slowing down, but he's not there yet. He's still got some time.
We dog sat for some people recently, like 2 weeks ago, and
Mm-hmm.
their dog is, I think, the exact same age, 14. It's a smaller dog, and it's pretty blind, can't hear that well,
Ugh.
and took it on walks, and like eventually, like halfway through a walk, just like sits on the cement.
It's like, I'm done. You're gonna have to carry me.
Yeah, kind of one of those. Still can go to the bathroom on its own, right? But you have to like fill up its food with water because quite literally can't chew. And so it's like one of these, when do you make that call? Because the dog still kind of functions, but can't see, struggles to walk,
Right.
not as active, sleeps all day, needs food to be soaking wet to even eat.
See, we're not there with Peanut yet.
But
Like,
do you think that sounds like the finish line?
No, look, I'm holding on with dear life. Much like this show.
Well,
this
don't be
episode,
uncomfortably
I'm gonna
holding
be
on,
holding
guy.
No, I'm
'Cause
not gonna.
It makes you look bad, actually. I knew people like this. They had a dog, and they quite literally had to pick the dog up. It was a medium to large dog. They quite literally had to pick the dog up to move it to places.
Oh no, we won't.
And
Well,
it was
look,
just like, that dog is,
he's gone.
it's dead, but it's still alive. You know what I
It's
mean?
doing the Jimmy Carter where
they
like it
eventually-
doesn't wake up on certain days.
Yeah. Jimmy Carter, is he alive? We
He's
don't know.
still alive, but there are days he doesn't wake up, is what I heard last.
But they ended up putting that dog down like very quickly after we saw it, and I don't know if that was from the shame of doing that to that dog, or they finally were just like, okay,
it's time.
it's time. This is unfair to everybody, including the animal. Don't be that guy.
See, I don't think that we have to worry about that because my dad's there. Like he will be the voice of reason. He didn't want the dog to begin with. Has he like come over to the dog's side? Yes, of course.
Does
Him
the
and
dog live with your parents or you?
He lives with my parents.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, I kind of hated the dog we currently have, but as every dog owner, and some that didn't want to be dog owners will tell you, you walk the dog, you clean the poop, you make sure it's fed, it lays next to you. Your dad may not have wanted that dog years ago, Will. Your dad might be more of a blubbering mess when that dog has to go down. And so I'm not so convinced your dad's readily going, hey, let's put Fido down.
I think he'll be the voice of reason. He's good with that stuff. My mom will try to hold on too long. I'll probably be a little bit closer to her side than my dad's, but I'll hold on a little bit longer than I probably should.
It's never easy.
No, and it's my first one.
I know.
It's like
That was your first dog, 12?
Yeah, we didn't have it. I had to fight for years. That was like a 2-year fight.
Yeah.
Different contract negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
We
I'll
had
do
to come
this
to the
chore. I'll do
table.
that chore. I'll train it. And
Oh yeah, no,
Oh,
I
yeah.
had outside
Oh, well.
entities working for me too. I grabbed other local parents to try and shame my father into letting me buy the dog.
Why
and
did
get
you
the
go
dog.
that dog out of curiosity? I know you love that dog, but you said you got like a purse dog. Why did you go purse dog?
Well, I'm allergic to dogs, and so is my dad.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
we needed the
Minimizing.
hypoallergenic.
Yeah.
Right, but then when you go with the cockapoo,
I don't know what a cockapoo is. It sounds like a
It's
bird.
a cute dog. It's a cocker spaniel and a poodle mix. You don't want
Oh.
the full poodle, and this is pre-golden doodle. So like no
Golden
one was
doodles.
getting golden doodles. It was
Yeah.
cockapoos.
Those are the hot dog now, golden doodles.
Dude, they're everywhere. My brother has a golden
They're
doodle.
kind of crazy, too, if you don't properly, like, walk them and exercise 'em.
right. Well, like my brother has a golden doodle. It's not golden.
Mm.
It's kind of ugly.
Really?
It's gray.
I've seen a couple of those.
It's gray with like some black spots.
I think that's the
it's
dog.
An interesting dog
that got invented a few years back, and the guy was recently asked, and he basically says, "I regret doing it." he hates the breed. He's like, "I hate that I did it."
They're the worst. They're so energetic. They have to be moving around constantly.
Oh, it's never great. I was a different situation. I was kind of born into a situation where people in my life had dogs, and they really had no business owning dogs, but they were like, "Hey, we got to have a dog." And then the dog is like outside, and you're like, "Are you going to let that dog inside at all?" No? Okay. Well, I'm 5, and I think that's wrong, so you're an adult. What are you doing?
Yeah, I don't get that. Like, why the outside only dog? That's
in the
not...
90s, man, I don't know if it was a 90s thing, an 80s thing. Maybe some people still do it. There was a real, like, there were just people who had dogs, and they just, like, they played with them, but they had, like, pins, and they just left them outside all day and night.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Well, like, I've been told, like, it's a country thing. It's like, I grew up in Hawkinson. It doesn't get much more country than that, at least not in these parts. None of my friends had just outside dogs.
Yeah,
like,
my aunt and uncle lived in Hawkinson in the hills, and they always had dogs. They were great dog people.
Yeah.
And they would always, like, run around their property. But at the end of the day, like sunset, it's dinner time. They're getting in and they're hanging out all night.
Right. Like if you have a husky, you might have a dog run so that they're not kept in a kennel all day, or they're not left around your house to tear it up. But as soon as you get home, like at some point, that dog's eating inside.
Yeah.
I don't I've never understood.
Well, to be very fully transparent, my stepdad got a golden retriever who I loved. It was my first dog ever. And my aunt had to take over the dog and was like, "Hey, we got 3-4 acres. Why don't you let us have the dog?"
Right.
Dog ended up having a great life, but like for a while there, I loved that dog, but I was 4, 5, 6 years old. That dog slept outside, and I was always like, "Why is it out? Like, why don't you bring the dog in?
Let it sleep. Let it sleep with me." That's all the kids want.
Very odd.
Just bring it in.
Yeah. Didn't quite understand it.
Yeah, I don't understand.
But
that
just
either.
be a responsible dog owner is all I'm
am.
saying. Don't let that dog. Because in a way, they kind of suffer if they get past a certain point, you know? Not that your dog's there yet. I know.
No, he's not there. He a couple years. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on a couple years. He can still see, but there, like I said.
Everything changes, though, within like a snap of a finger. We thought our dog was good.
Right.
We came back from Hawaii. She had all this fluid in her. She had cancer. And it's like within 2 weeks of coming back from a vacation, hey, you can keep her alive.
Right.
But awful quality of life here. And we were like, okay, well, I don't want the dog to suffer.
Right. No, 100%. We won't do that to Peanut. Peanut's been a good dog. Good family dog.
Oh, I love a good Peanut.
Yeah, not the manliest dog name. Look, I was 12. We're working on it.
It's okay. I had a wiener dog. I named it Snickers because it had every color of a Snickers bar on it.
That's fantastic.
I mean, I had a lot of regrets about that about 4 or 5 years after I made the name, but I chose the name nonetheless.
There you go. You know what I will say? The proudest thing that I've accomplished with this dog?
Yeah.
Never made an Instagram for it.
There you go.
You will never see Peanut the Cockapoo on Instagram.
Have you posted it on Instagram?
Not on the new one.
You have a new Instagram?
Yeah, there was a thing. It happened. I got hacked.
Oh
well.
You didn't get your account back?
No.
The ex-girlfriend?
No. Had a buddy. Never mind. Big crypto guy.
You got scammed on a crypto thing?
I didn't lose any money.
No, but like,
yeah.
You responded to something and it
Well,
hacks
like,
your account type deals?
It was one of those deals where it's like, you have 2 or 3 gen ed classes with a guy, go out and drink with him every once in a while. Nice guy.
Sure.
Always talking to you about Bitcoin.
Oh, God.
All of a sudden you're in a moment where you're like, man, I got a new girlfriend. Like, I need some money. I could go take her out somewhere nice. Dude texts in, hey, look at all this Bitcoin I'm making.
Yep.
It's right during like the big COVID GameStop boom. It's like, I'm in, let's go. I'm just a big, dumb 22-year-old.
Sure.
All you got to do, dude, just click this link. All right, bet. Boom, gone. Oh, crap.
You got roaring kittied.
Oh, I got way worse than roaring kitty.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I got taken out behind the woodshed. But guess what? That was 22-year-old Will. And we improved and we're better. And I've never fallen for another Bitcoin scam again.
We're living and we're learning, baby.
I've got a sign at my house that says days until last Bitcoin scam.
Oh, and you're keeping track of it?
Yeah, I think we're in the 3000s.
Well, we got a weird show today. I'll be honest with you. We're going to 10 a.m., but we're not really sure what's in front of us. You know what I mean? Like we're going down a path We think the path is going to get us through the forest, but we're not really sure what we're going to encounter on the way, right?
Or Lewis and Clark.
A little bit. Wizard of Ozzy.
Yeah.
It's like, we got to go this way. There's a scarecrow. Okay, we're going. There's some apples. Oh, there's a Tin Man. And we're just.
Swag is our Sacagawea.
Yeah, Swag's going to be our cowardly lion. He is going to join us live from Indy. I don't think I'm going to get to an NFL Zigger Zag today. I didn't prepare one because I didn't know what the schedule was going to be. Big Ten Media Day, if you haven't been able to guess, is wildly all over the place. This is not a Swag thing. This is not a 1080 thing. This is a them thing. And so at some point, we might have Miller Moss, the quarterback of USC. At another point, we might have Luke Lachey, the tight end of Iowa. At another point, Adam Rittenberg, maybe Steve Hellwagon from Bucknuts, Ohio State. Swag himself is going to join us because I want to do a statter story at 8:15. So it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be wild, but it's going to be fun. Will Ortner in for Swag. Swag is live in Indy. We'll touch base with him. And thanks for hanging with us. We got a lot to get to. Let's get it started. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan. He told me he had a gut bomb of a brisket sandwich yesterday for one of his meals, and I said, well, you're living the best life over there in Indy, at least. Big Ten Media Days on the Fan are brought to you in part by Mods PDX. The future of building is here. We'll get to some college football dealings. Ryan Day with a couple things that stood out to me yesterday live at the podium that we'll discuss. We've got some Blazer and basketball things to get to and touch on. Chauncey did a podcast yesterday, Carmelo Anthony's podcast, revealing an interesting story from his first year. I think he said it was his first year in Portland, or maybe it was his second year, or maybe it was last year. At this point, it's all a blur, and none of it's been good. But people on the internet have tracked down maybe who the culprit could be, so we'll get to that coming up. It's been rough, and one thing that's been exciting to me about the media days, fall camps are going to open up here. NFL camps have all opened up now. We've got Eminem, Joe Burrow. We've got Cody Rhodes, Joe Burrow showing up to Bengals camp. It gets me excited, and I know, Will, it gets you excited too because you're a football guy. But partly what helps with the excitement is the fact that my baseball team sucks.
Yes.
They're not good. The Braves had a team-only meeting yesterday, and I'm not here to talk exclusively about the Atlanta Braves. What I'm saying is when your baseball team's not very good, or they're struggling, or they become kind of unwatchable, it makes football season get there a lot quicker. And I know I'm kind of there. I'm keeping tabs on my Bravos, but I don't really expect a whole lot with the injuries they've suffered, and they just haven't played well this year. I can only imagine where you're at as a Mariner fan after what's happened the last two games. And at this point, we talked about Seattle going and getting a bat. It kind of feels like, do they need to be sellers?
I honestly don't hate that. At this point, when you look at the Mariners, it looks like a team that has just totally quit. I mean, 2 days ago, Scott Service literally gets in the presser and is just like, we're not a Major League Baseball club.
Do they look like they've quit, or is this who they've been and they just won a lot of one-run games and benefited from great pitching?
See,
that's the tough thing, I think, to decipher with the Seattle Mariners.
It almost feels like a chicken or the egg thing because sometimes you can struggle, right? Like everyone has bad days. Everyone has days, where it just isn't going well for you at work, right? But then you have a good day, or a boss comes in or someone comes in and says, hey man, you really killed it on this, or you did this really well. And then you get back into the swing of things. And I just feel like at no point has this team come in and figured it out. I mean, look at Julio. It's his worst year in the majors by far, not even close. I mean, Cal Raleigh's still hitting bombs, but his average is horrific. You look at the entire team average. At one point you were hitting 210 as an entire team, and I don't think that that's really gone up. And then the biggest issue since the All-Star break, and I know it's only been 2 series, but you can't field. You gave up 5 runs in the 5th last night. 1 was earned.
Yeah.
That's horrific. That's Little League numbers right there. Literally Little League high school numbers. That can't happen. But that's happening because guys are pressing at the plate. They're not doing well. They're not putting the ball in play. Then they go out into the field and they're like, well, we have to be perfect. We can't make a single mistake. The minute that they make a mistake, it's over, right? It just seems like they're imploding. You had a 10-game lead in the division. You lose that in 24 games. It's the fastest by 11 games or 9 games. I can't remember. It's the fastest a team has blown that big of a lead in the division.
Yeah.
That's what you did, right? And so it just feels like it's one of those, it's not a slump. You have hit a point where you thought, hey, we're winning despite everything else. It's all going to get figured out. It's all going to come around.
Yep.
Well, that stuff doesn't get figured out. It doesn't come around. And then it almost gets worse because now you're pressing because you know you're losing. You're not winning. It sucks.
Yeah, I think most fans are kind of exactly with what you said and where you're at. Of just, this is what we're going to get. It's depressing. The Angels are not good.
No.
The Angels are not good.
No.
So, I told this to Dirt the other day as we got ready for the second half of the season. And the Astros series had happened. Dirt goes through the schedule and was like, well, you got this team and that team. And I had said, you can say that the schedule gets easier for them, and I would respond with, why is it easier for them? What have they proven to say, oh, it's the Angels? And look what they've done. They've lost the first 2 of the series. Yeah. So I don't...
You might get swept.
even if you don't, you lost another series to the Angels.
Right.
You
Well,
just lost 3 out of 4 to them like 2 series ago.
and the part that's frustrating, I was up in Seattle on Friday. I watched that Houston Astros game. Luis Castillo, who has his moments where he has big blow-up innings.
Sure.
That blow-up inning wasn't his fault, and it wasn't even a blow-up. He gave up 3 runs. That's it. Your starter went out and had a quality start. He had 7 innings pitched. He gave up 3 runs. By the way, 2 of them weren't earned. Your shortstop booted one. Your second baseman had a throwing error. So it's not even like, not only are the pitchers still performing great, but you're having guys have, issues, and they're having fielding errors, and those are things that need to get fixed.
I think they're going to go. I'm curious to see what they do with the deadline looming. I think that they're end up going to be sellers. All right, so let's do this. We've got Miller Moss. I'm going to break real quick. I think we have to, because I don't. How long am I going to have him for? Do you know? I got. We'll do this. This is. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll talk with USC quarterback Miller Moss. Big Ten Media Day is here, baby. Unpredictable, wild, all over the place. Miller Moss, USC quarterback. in Indy helping us out there. The Daily Ticker is brought to you by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, and award-winning beers independently brewed since 1996. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. We go live to Indianapolis. Our Daily Ticker guest today, we are very honored. The starting quarterback of the USC Trojans, Lincoln Riley's new guy, Miller Moss, who had a hell of a bowl game record, 6 tutties against Louisville, and he joins us live from Indianapolis. Good morning, Miller. Thanks for hopping on with us. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Good morning. Thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
How is all of this? What is this like for you? You got some good stories out there of biding your time and waiting for your moment at USC, and it comes last year in the bowl game, and you take advantage of it. You grew up wanting to be the quarterback of USC. Here you are, starting quarterback, coming off of a great performance. What's it like to be the face of USC at a media day?
Yes, sir. I mean, look, we've got a lot of great players and a lot of great people in that building. So I don't want to walk around thinking I'm the face of the program or anything like that. But it is a tremendous honor to be able to represent the team here in Indy, and something I'm really excited about.
Can you walk us through the moment you find out you're going to be starting against Louisville, what the nerves and emotions are like, and then just going out there and having that kind of game?
Yeah, I think there was really just a ton of excitement. You know, I had put in a ton of work that wasn't necessarily in the public eye. I was excited for that to translate, and I was excited to see really to prove to myself that, you know, I told myself I could do this over and over again, and it was really exciting to prove that to myself and give the team a ton of credit in how they responded to a rough back half of the year and really coming together in that bowl game prep and coming out with a win.
What did you guys accomplish, you think, from ending the season on such a high where the noise is kind of loud about, hey, what this year was this year was that, and now you go into a new conference where expectations are kind of all over the place about the program.
Right.
What did you guys take away from that you've applied into the offseason and now as you get ready for fall camp to maybe prove people wrong about who you guys are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first of all, we try to not buy into media narrative, so to speak, but one thing we really did take away from that bowl game is what we can accomplish in coming together. And I think we kind of saw that come to fruition throughout that game and throughout that process. And I think that's really served as a springboard going into our offseason and really served as a solid foundation going into this season. So I'm really excited about what we learned throughout that process, and I'm really hoping that carried over.
This is USC starting quarterback Miller Moss joining us live from Big Ten Media Day. Daily Ticker brought to you on the Fan by Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. I'm pretty excited to see you guys. You got a lot of weapons out there, some of which I don't think people are talking enough about. What did you do in the offseason to help build even more chemistry with your receiving core of, you know, Lincoln Riley's offense tends to show us big-name quarterback, and then also, hey, they've got these explosive weapons. How much did you guys put in work into the offseason when you didn't even necessarily need to keep building some of the chemistry?
Right, yeah. Like you said, I'm very lucky to have some super talented guys to throw to, and just really want to commend them on their work ethic. Whenever I wanted to throw, whenever I wanted to watch film, whatever it was, one of our receivers got sick for a week during the summer, and he's sending me clips of what he's watching. So those guys really dove in and really embraced the process of wanting to be great. And I think there's a mutual understanding between all of us that there are certain things we have to do in order to go win football games, and all those guys really embrace that process. So like I said, I'm super lucky to be surrounded by guys that share the same want to be great and want to go win. So love those guys and excited for this year.
What's it like to play for Lincoln? There's been some national narrative noise out there about him, which we've jokingly set up here in Portland is a little ridiculous. But I'm just curious from a player perspective, especially your position, it seems like it might be a dream, but what is it like playing for Lincoln Riley?
Absolutely. I mean, in terms of the national narrative, we try not to pay any mind to that. But like you said, as a quarterback, it's really a dream come true to play for someone like that. I think the first couple meetings I ever sat in with him, like, I understood why he was so successful, and then going through a season with him, watching how he game plans week by week, and also just the lengths he's willing to go to win. He's someone that I truly respect and look up to and also really enjoy working with. I think it's invaluable as a quarterback when you have absolute faith in the call that's coming from the sideline, and it allows you to really play freely and not feel like you have to do more than what is asked of you. So very freeing as a quarterback to be able to play for him, and really honored to be in that position.
What areas did he maybe kind of point at, even though you have a good bowl game, that he says, Miller, you know, work on this for next year? Like, what's an area that you've really yourself tried to hone in skill-wise?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the best way to answer that is everything, you know. my goal, especially personally, has been to step on that field in September as a completely different player than I stepped on the field in December. So I think that's all encompassing when it comes to throwing the ball, running the ball, leadership, and everything else that can be included in playing the position.
Miller Moss, the quarterback for USC, is our guest here on the Daily Ticker. He is live in Indianapolis. Swag was able to track him down. We're pretty excited to talk to him, coming off a great performance against Louisville, but he goes in now, the starting quarterback. Expectations are interesting. You've kind of alluded to a couple things there of, like, we don't pay attention to the national noise. What did you learn from Caleb, though, in seeing what he was doing in L.A. and kind of applying some of what maybe you saw or you learned from a guy like Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, I think those practices with Caleb will always be so valuable to me in my career and who I became and become as a player. I think just going back and forth with him, especially when he first got there, we were the only two scholarship quarterbacks in the room, so we took every single rep. So it'd be like he would go, I would go, he would go, I would go, and that back and forth really helped me grow as a player. When it comes to learning from him, the one thing that I'll always say that I'll take from him is he just exuded confidence. And I think having that unflappable confidence as a quarterback, especially as a quarterback at USC, is so invaluable to how you play. Just because that position is so dependent on confidence. And he could throw a pick, have a bad practice, whatever it may be, and he never faltered in who he knew he was as a player. So I think that's something that I'll always take from him.
Is it weird to be in the Big Ten? I know you're kind of focused on your season and fall camp's about to open, but as somebody who watched USC from afar and always rooted for him, like, it just, for us
Right.
in Portland, it's, the Ducks are over there now, and the whole landscape of this stuff changes so much. I know you guys probably just stay in your own bubbles and try to work on your own individual skill sets, but, like, how much of this stuff do you follow with realignment and conference changing, and just how maybe odd is it to be in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Day being the USC
Right.
Trojans?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I'll kind of miss is those old Pac-12 rivalries that I watched growing up. My mom went to Stanford, and I was always a huge SC fan, so that was always a big game in our house. So I think that's the one thing I might miss. But when it comes to the schedule and realignment and all that stuff, it's our job to play who's on the schedule, and as players, we don't determine that. So our job is to put ourselves in the best possible position to go win games, and it's not about who's on the schedule, it's about what we do. So just really excited as a team and as a locker room.
You guys start the season off against LSU. I know camp is about to get underway, but just like opening the season, you're a standalone Sunday night game on ABC against the LSU Tigers, who are coming in looking for a little redemption for themselves too after their season.
Yes, sir.
Just, you got to be kind of jacked about that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why you come to USC to play in games like that. So I think it helps set the tone for the offseason when you've got a big week one game. And just really, like you said, really excited about that opportunity, and that's why you come to SC.
Is there I'll get you out of here on this one because we do appreciate the time. Is there a game or a program outside of the LSU stuff? You get into the Big Ten that, like, you look at that schedule and you take every opponent the same level of serious, but there's one that you're like, a little more excited to see the venue or play this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think we play, I believe our road games are Washington, Maryland, Minnesota, and Michigan. So Coach Riley's always put a premium on conference road games, so we'll prepare extremely well for all of those, as we will for all the games. But as a USC Trojan, you're always going to get a little jacked up for UCLA and Notre Dame, but like you said, we treat every game the same and just take it week by week.
I also noticed there you didn't mention one road game because, well, we've all watched UCLA. I'm not really sure that's a road game for you guys.
Right, yeah, I guess no travel. I didn't count it as a road game. That's my fault.
Well, so I've seen it. We all know what's going on right there. Miller Moss is the new quarterback for USC. Have you played yourself in the video game? I do want to ask you that. Have you played yourself in EA yet?
I have.
What do we think of yourself playing the video game? And is it weird to play with your – well, this is going to sound odd, but to play with yourself, and how are you as a video game player?
I'm not a huge video game guy, but I think I take it a little more seriously when I'm playing as myself. There's a little more pride on the line. So it's been fun. It's a really cool game. Just awesome that we get to be part of the – renewal of that game and that experience.
Well, thanks for hopping on with us here in Portland, man. We appreciate it. Looking forward to the season, especially that first game of the year against LSU. Good luck this year, and thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, there we go. Good stuff. Miller Moss, the quarterback of the USC Trojans. joining us on the Daily Ticker, which is brought to you, of course, by our great friends at Pelican Brewing. You can visit them at pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, award-winning beers. They're independently brewed since 96. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. Good stuff from Miller Moss. We move on. We've got another guest coming up next. You may know her. We haven't had her on in a while, and we can't wait to talk with her. Heather Denich joins us on The Fan next.
The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
We just talked with Miller Moss, the USC quarterback. He joined us. I saw the photo from Swag. He was all alone at a two-table situation talking to us in Portland. It looked sad, awesome, all kinds of things. But good stuff from him. He seems pretty pumped and jacked to get the season going. I mentioned it. He had a 6-tutty game against Louisville in their bowl game. And so they ended their season on a bit of a high and encouraging, like, hey, we might have our guy here. So good stuff from Miller Moss. If you missed that interview, we'll put him at 1080thefan.com. We are anxiously awaiting our good friend Heather Denich, who we haven't talked with in a while. She's been busy. We used to get her all the time, and now she's on Get Up and First Take, and she's moving and grooving. She's in the hospitality tent, but we are anxiously awaiting Heather Denich to join us. It sounds like Swag touched base with Will. Josh Pate may join us at some point in the show today.
We're hoping so.
We're hoping
We're
so.
working on it.
There's a lot going on. All of these people are also doing stuff, so it's just like, you're trying to snip, snap, go one schedule to another. Dirk, coincidentally, is out today and tomorrow. He had scheduled a vacation about a year ago during Big Ten Media Day, so we're going to be going 6 to 10 today, and that's great for the audience that doesn't show up till 7 a.m. We'll be on till 10. We don't know who we're going to get and when we're going to get them, but we'll roll with it when we do. Swag will join us around 8:15-ish. I'd like to do a Indianapolis version of Stat or Story, but if we need to pump out of that because you're busy and you haven't prepared it and you're doing a million things. You what?
I have tree. I have tree, stats, and stories.
Oh, really?
Or stories. Stats or stories. Yeah.
Okay.
I did it this morning.
Okay.
You texted me last night. I came prepared.
Well, you look super busy too, so I didn't know, and that happens. But Swag will join us at around 8:15 today.
I got you.
Heather Denich will join us. I just also want to be fully transparent. I don't think we're going to get any coaches. It doesn't sound like the coaches are very accommodating to the local things. It's more, hey, podium, national, we're out of here. We're shaking hands and kissing babies. So I'm not entirely confident Jonathan Smith is going to join any program today. And if he doesn't, that's kind of why. Every coach is kind of doing the same thing at Big Ten Media Day. Heather Denich, again, will join us live from Indianapolis as we get ready to talk some college football. It is here, man. It is fall camps are about to open. My Beavs are opening fall camp soon. The Ducks are opening fall camp soon. It gets you jacked. I'm going through schedules. I'm seeing what games are happening in what weeks. I'm going to Seattle Storm game on August 30th, which is a Friday night. Sabrina Ionescu is going to be in town. And I made sure to look at the college football schedule, and I'm like, Clemson, Georgia, 9 a.m. Saturday. We're staying in Seattle Friday night after the game. I'm like, we're not going home until after that Georgia-Clemson game.
No, you're going to have to go and find a Seattle bar or something.
Yes. Family-friendly.
Mimosa. Oh, yeah,
I got
you're
the
right.
kiddos.
I gotta remember that I'm the only single one at this station without children.
Yes, I think you would be correct on that.
Yeah. There's an age difference. There's an age gap. And
there's a couple no kids, but single and ready to mingle. You'd be the only one there.
Yeah, I think what you got to do is you got to find a spot where there's like an arcade. Like down here, that's the perfect Big Al's time, right? Like you can
that's a good one.
Find a nice spot where you can get some food, the kids can eat, but then they can also run around. They can go to the arcade. They can go bowling.
Yep.
They can do their thing because they're not going to want to sit and watch a whole football game. I'm assuming your kids aren't at that age yet.
They're not. They're not really into football in general. They're two girls. They're 12 and 8. Not that girls can't be into football.
They're
Heather
just
Denich
not.
is about to join us, but they're just not at an age yet where they even really want to watch any sports, largely. So
yeah.
I'm barely got my oldest into basketball.
Oh, yeah?
I'm just taking that win for what I can.
Who's the top player? How'd you get him into it?
I got her into it with Clark.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, she became, and now it's like, Aja Wilson and Ionescu and explaining who Tarasi is.
See, I was wondering if you might have gotten him on the Dame train. Like my big first memory was like Brandon Roy being drafted, being a Blazer. Like that's what got me into basketball.
She knows who Dame is. She's familiar that Dame is very good and popular in Portland, but like, it also helps to identify, and she can more identify with Caitlin Clark than she can Damian Lillard.
I wonder why.
I don't know. Maybe it's the white woman thing. I don't know. But yeah, so if that ends up being a blowout, then I'm going to hit the road early because I'm not going to stick around for a blowout.
No.
And whether it's a blowout or not, I'll be home in time for the Idaho-Oregon game and the Idaho State-Oregon State game, or vice versa, however that goes. They're both playing Idaho's that day.
Hey,
so.
As an Ortner, I'm going to have to keep an eye on the Oregon State-Idaho State game. Now, I will be in here for the Ducks post game.
There you go.
But
you're doing it again this year, right, with Buck?
I am, yes.
Okay.
It's going to be fantastic.
It will be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it.
But the little cousin's over at Idaho State, so he's playing wide receiver out there. So I am going to have to keep an eyeball and see what's going on with the little cousin.
You know, we follow football in August. I may have said this yesterday, but if I didn't, we get excited. Fall camp starts. NFL training camps are open, right? And then there's like a 2.5 week period in August where like that excitement kind of goes away in the sense of what happened at practice yesterday? Absolutely nothing. Nobody could watch and they didn't share any information. All right, great.
Well, that's the one thing that no one really understands about fall camp is that fall camp sucks for everybody.
Oh,
like
the players
football
are miserable.
And here's the thing, it's 1,000 times easier than even 5 years ago. Like no one in college football, except for maybe Cam Rising, knows what it was like to do two-a-days.
Right.
I am the last group that did two-a-days. My freshman year of college, 2016.
Right.
That's when we had two-a-days. Like I listened to an Aaron Rodgers interview a couple days ago, and his whole thing was like, training camp isn't even hard anymore. Like my body isn't sore. The only part that gets annoying is I have 1,000 meetings all day.
There's a bunch of meetings. They don't
Right.
want people hitting each other a whole lot because of injury. They all wear these big-ass Smurf concussion helmet things on their
The
helmets
Guardian
now.
caps.
Dude, those things, and by the way, the NFL's allowing those. Those look weird. I know that they help, and that's great. They just look like the great Gazoo out there playing football.
Here's the thing. They don't help, though, because I was going
I thought
out...
they took concussions down a certain percentage.
Yes, they totally do. But I remember when we first got Guardian caps, the first thing that we did as idiots is we lined up 20 yards apart from each other, sprinted so that we met in the middle, and Chris Benoit headbutted each other.
Yeah.
Like flying off the top rope.
Like when you're in a
Headbutt.
bubble at those big human
Yes.
bubbles and you just run into
We
each other.
did it 10 times. It was the dumbest thing you've ever
Yeah.
seen. Literally, our coach had to come out and be like, stop.
It cuts it down. It doesn't actually stop it from
The
happening.
president of the university is here. You guys look like idiots. He's going to fire me. You cannot jump into each other, Superman.
Well, whenever I
style.
see Travis Kelce's, his head is so big and it's so massive. I'm like, when he runs, does the wind tip him over a little bit because of how massive that thing
It
is?
sounds stupid, but it does take like a sec to get used to it.
I
It's-
bet it does.
I mean,
it's got to
it's-
feel a little weird.
It's not like super heavy, and it's not like you take it off and you're like, it's like a 5-pound ankle brace, and now I can sprint and I'm faster.
What should we do here? Because if we break now, we'll be right on time for the second hour, and it doesn't. I don't think you've been alerted of Heather. So should I break? Are we good to break?
He's talking in my ear.
Okay. God, this whole thing is so up in the air, wild, and if we break now,
No break. Go long.
don't break.
Swag, the king of breaks, said go long. We're going long.
Just keep going.
Go deep, run 4 verts. She's coming.
Okay.
She'll be here in like a minute.
Well, I mean,
She's right here.
okay. Do we have her?
I'm putting her on.
Okay,
on.
here we go. Heather, can you hear us?
I got you. You got me all right?
Oh, my God. Will, can you get on the mic and clap? This is the Heather Denich. This is a good friend of the show. We haven't had her on in a while. How you doing, Heather?
I'm terrific. How are you guys?
You know what? We've been a little envious of Get Up, but we watch every day in our studio, and we go, there's our good friend Heather Denich. We used to just get her on the radio, but she's too big time now. You're on ESPN Daily. Congratulations on all your success so far. It's great to see you on the national shows.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and credit Oregon and USC and UCLA and Washington and
yeah.
Texas and Oklahoma. They have a little something to do with that. There's a little more to talk about right now.
Well, what is it like to kind of walk around? I know you're talking to a lot of big wigs, your movers and shakers out there. What's it just like? I was talking to Miller Moss at USC, and he grew up watching the Trojans. His mom's a Stanford fan. I'm like, is this weird to you? And he's like, yep, this is weird to me. Is it weird to everybody else covering the sport or in the sport of just like, hey, there's Washington and Oregon logos here at Big Ten Media Day?
Yes, it's weird. And I say that having the perspective of being an Indiana graduate. And I'm here, and I landed at the airport in Indianapolis, where I landed so many times when I was a student flying out here from Pennsylvania. And, you know, you get here and you walk in, and the Oregon Duck is in the river on social media. And I'm just like, where am I? This is Indianapolis? And also, what are the people thinking who are just walking around town and have no idea what's going on here in Lucas Oil Stadium? So it's strange, but at the same time, we're all used to Oregon and Ohio State playing, right? We've seen that movie before. And when they get on the field, it's going to be normal because that's college football and it's going to be a great game. But now it has implications for the Big Ten standings.
Well, what's interesting, and we're talking to Heather Denich here, ESPN. Find her on Twitter. She covers the sport, does a great job covering the playoff as well. Joining us live from Indianapolis. You know, one thing we've talked about is these schools going to these new conferences. The one big thing about college that I think all of us love is like pageantry and rivalry and, hey, Oregon hates Cal and you know, just random rivalries that nobody in America thinks about or talks about that are real for us. Are we going to miss that with this? And you've alluded to something that I was thinking about yesterday listening to Ryan Day, and Dan Lanning's the preseason coach of the year in the Big Ten, and they're coming in with a lot of juice. They haven't played in the regular season. They, I think, played one time in like the last 25-plus years. They've met in bowl games. In a way, they come in this year without having been conference foes, and it feels like that game is going to feel like a rivalry given what the narrative's been about Oregon and Ohio State bringing back such a loaded team and defending kind of the Big Ten's traditional powerhouses.
Well, and it's what's interesting to me, so a couple points here. The rivalries are different. In the SEC, they talked last week about gaining some rivalries with Texas playing the Aggies again and Arkansas, and they made a point of emphasis on that because there are some others that will be lost, like Oklahoma State, right? And those kinds of things are what make college football so special and unique. One of the things that could happen in the college football playoff, I'm not sure if people realize, is teams have the potential, if the stars align, to play each other 3 times, which could create new rivalries because Oregon and Ohio State could play in the regular season. They could see each other again in the Big Ten championship game. And if the seeding falls right, they could play again in the college football playoff, which is crazy. Same thing could happen with Ohio State, Michigan. So that possibility is open. But you think about Ohio State having to go to Autzen, which I've been to, is a fantastic, difficult place to play, right? But then you also have UCLA that has to go to Rutgers, right? And Penn State. And you think about these trips, and it's just mind-blowing, some of the travel. And Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti talked about that a little bit yesterday when he spoke to the media and said that travel is going to be hard. The one thing they did is they prevented cross-country trips in back-to-back weeks for teams, but he said that they will continue to evaluate travel for all sports across the board as the season unfolds.
How many Big Ten teams in your mind are, when you talk about playoff, like we're weary that the SEC network, which is under the umbrella of you guys, I said this last week, like they're already kind of teeing up, I think there's 5 teams here that should make the playoff, and like they're already getting that narrative out there. As we saw last year, narratives matter. Florida State gets hosed after being undefeated. I'm curious, when you look at the Big Ten, how many teams to you, if we're in a 12-team expanded playoff year 1, how many do you view as playoff teams? How many could the Big Ten get in?
I think 3 is a realistic number, and if you're comparing that to the SEC, I think 4 is a realistic number for the SEC. I think the SEC's deeper, quite honestly, but I think that has yet to play out in the Big Ten, because when I look at the Big Ten, I see Ohio State at the top, Oregon, and then who's that 3rd team? Is it Penn State? They do have something to prove, right? Michigan has a lot of questions after losing so much from last year's national championship team. Is USC a contender? Can Wisconsin be a long shot team? There's room for more, but what no one knows, including the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, is will a 3-loss team get in? You're definitely going to see a 2-loss team. But the fact of the matter is, in the SEC and the Big Ten, it's going to be really, really difficult to finish with even 2 losses for some of these teams because it got harder when these conferences added the teams that they did. So, I think 3 is realistic and of the, preseason, what we know on paper, Penn State to me would be that 3rd team for the Big Ten, but they've got a tough schedule too. I mean, good grief. They could lose their season opener, West Virginia.
Yeah, West Virginia is one of those under-the-radar teams. Heather Denich joining us here, ESPN Live at Indianapolis Big Ten Media Day. Your thoughts, just seeing maybe blurbs or watching the press conference of Jim Phillips in the ACC. We, in Portland, our 2 cents was it just had a lot of George Kliavkoff last year energy of like, no, we're great. We're amazing. We're in this with everybody else. And I know there's been a lot of noise. Your thoughts on the ACC's current landscape where their powerhouses seem to not be happy, and they're saying everything's all great. We're a great conference.
I can just picture Jim Phillips' face cringing if he heard you compare him to George Kliavkoff.
Am I wrong, Heather? Didn't it come off a little George Kliavkoff? Like, hey, we're in a great spot right now.
In a way, yes. The difference is that it's a big difference. The difference is with George at this time last year, he was trying to get a TV deal.
Yes.
And the ACC is locked into one, and that's causing all of the frustration and tension and lawsuits. So in a way, it was good for the ACC, for Jim Phillips to come out and so staunchly defend the conference and say, this is not good for the league, because he hasn't been very public about really some strong feelings that he obviously has. And for him to do that, I think was at the right time, at the right moment. And also, everyone at every other media days, every commissioner is getting asked about the ACC. How close are you paying attention to it? Sankey was asked about it. Petiti was asked about it. Yormark's always asked about it. So, excuse me, it's a real issue. But I think if you're in his shoes, you're saying and doing the same thing.
We'll get you out of here on this one because we do appreciate the time. It's nice to catch up with you, really, it is. And we know you're crushing it over there at ESPN. If the ACC, if something is to happen with some of the bigger players who don't seem very happy, is the pivot for the ACC maybe, do they reach out West Coast? Like, we have 2 schools out here that kind of got left out of the Pac-12 dealings, and they're just trying to keep afloat in this landscape, this weird landscape of college football. Oregon State, Washington State, ACC futures, ? Yes?
I wouldn't rule anything out because conference realignment is never over. They need to find a home. You would expect, and I'm sure that Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Nevarez and Pac-12 Commissioner Teresa Gould are having conversations about the future of both their leagues and what the best option is for those 2 schools. They want to be Power 5 money, Power 4 money, right? They want to be resources and everything that's attached with that. Would they have that opportunity? I don't know the answer to that right at this, as we sit here this very moment, but it's hard not to imagine them landing in a spot that is Power 4, but at the same time, it didn't happen yet. It's like musical chairs, right? And they didn't get picked. So I don't know, guys. It's a tough situation for them to be in. There's no other answer to that.
Yeah, there for sure is. Good stuff. Heather Denich joining us in Indianapolis Big Ten Media Day. Heather, it was great to catch up with you. We'd really like, if your schedule opens up at any point during the football season, to get you back on and talk about what's happening during the season. Thank you for joining us. And again, congratulations. It's great to see somebody who's worked their tail off be rewarded and see you on the national shows almost every day now that football season's back.
Thank you guys so much. I'm happy to join you, and you guys are in Big Ten country now, so get used to it.
There we go. B1G Oregon. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
There we go. Heather Denich joining us live from Big Ten Media Day. Good stuff from her. Jeff Schwarz is supposed to join us in about 10 minutes, so we're going to take a break, and we'll be back even though we're in the second hour with hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
Dusty here for Victorico's Mexican.
wrapped with Heather Denich at 7:06-ish. And we thank Heather Denich, Swag, arranging that. We're supposed to talk with Jeff Schwarz in about 3 or 4 minutes. So we might have a shorty here, and then we'll hop right back on. We'll talk with former Oregon offensive lineman and obviously longtime NFL lineman Jeff Schwarz. He'll join us. We'll get his thoughts on a floating duck in the river. If you ever thought you'd see Oregon be this, I mean, Oregon took a huge step in his time in Eugene, but just kind of curious. Also, his thoughts on the landscape, Ohio State, where Oregon is in general, and what they're ultimately what they could reach maybe as a program this year with expectations kind of through the roof for them. So Jeff Schwarz is going to join us. We're working to talk with our buddy Steve Hellwagon. That might not be till 8 a.m. We are going, or until 9 a.m., excuse me. We are going till 10. So if you're just tuning in, you heard us talk to Heather Denich. We're going 6 to 10 today and 6 to 10 tomorrow. I basically told Swag, if we're not getting coaches, let's just get as many media members as we can. We may also have Josh Pate today. So it's going to be a fluid, wild, unpredictable show in which we never really know when guests are stopping by. I didn't know Miller Moss was on the headset until he was on the headset. Again, Jeff Schwarz is going to join us here in just like 2 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to get through a whole lot. We'll take a quick reprieve unless Swag surprises us with something. I've got Chauncey Billups audio to get to. Ryan Day audio. A couple things that stood out from his podium comments yesterday. We can react to some of what Heather Denich said with Oregon State, Washington State. I know they hope to be in a power conference at some point. A lot of rumblings out there on the Big 12. There's a guy who had something correct that is saying stuff about the Big 12. So we'll get to that coming up. But Jeff Schwarz is set to join the show here in about 2 minutes. So what we'll do is we'll take a very, very quick break, and we apologize because we know we just came back. And then when we come back, we will talk with Jeff Schwarz, Dirt and Sprague, back with Schwarz, next on The Fan. Media Days are brought to you in part by Legends Casino. Fun is how we roll. Swag is live in Indianapolis. We told you earlier it's going to be wild and all over the place. And sometimes we don't know when or who is going to pop on, but we were excited to find out that we could get Jeff Schwarz, former Oregon Duck offensive lineman, obviously NFL offensive lineman as well. You catch him on Sirius XM, Fox Sports, and his new show, Jeff Schwarz is Smarter Than You, because, well, he played football, and he is. He absolutely is. He joins us now. Jeff Schwarz on Twitter. Jeff, good morning. Thanks for hopping on with us, man. How you doing?
I'm good. It's a little surreal, this whole, Big Ten Media Day and seeing the logos of the 4 West Coast schools. And the funniest part to me is on the big jumbotrons here in the morning before we get going here, they sort of roll through a bunch of different award winners in the Big Ten. And right now the draft is up here. And, they're including Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze and Bo Nix and Leatu Latu as Big Ten players.
They're taking credit, huh?
They had leaderboards up yesterday, and they had Jim Thorpe Award, and it was like Mark Carrier from 1989 at USC. I'm like, I don't know if you can claim that for the Big Ten, but I guess you sort of have to now. So, it's real. It's different, but it's real. So we have to embrace it.
Do you like it, though?
I don't know if like is the right word. As an Oregon fan, there's relief, especially when you see what's happening with the ACC right now and how there's a very clearly defined top 2 hierarchy with the SEC and Big Ten. So I feel very relieved that Oregon is in the Big Ten. I feel like this is, big boy football, which we certainly deserve to be in. And so that to me is... So relief, I think, is the right way to put it. I'm relieved Oregon's here. But again, I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Big Ten yet. We just got here. Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, for the most part, their history. It's learning everyone else. It's talking to these coaches and players and finding tidbits about their programs. I'm doing Sirius XM. Everyone will tune in today. And, doing it with Anthony Herron, who's great, and Ben Hartzog. And, those are 2 Big Ten lifers, and hearing them talk about schools and storylines and stuff that I just, no matter what research that I do, I ain't gonna find. And so, but that's the way they probably feel when I talk about the 4 Pac-12 schools, right? So it's a learning experience, but I'm enjoying being out here.
Your new show, Jeff Schwarz is Smarter Than You. You very well are. I'm curious, though. You were at Oregon at kind of the launch of branding and changing and uniforms, and you were at the start of all of that stuff. I'm curious, did Jeff Schwarz in college, or even Jeff Schwarz now, think he'd ever be in Indianapolis and see a big-ass floating duck in the river, and what he makes of all that?
Dude, I got done at 3 yesterday, and I walked back to the hotel, got something to eat, and then I got on. I love taking those little scooters, right? Like
yes,
little scooters.
Yeah,
I love it. I got it because I'm. It's like my adventure. I'm not very adventurous. It's taking a scooter through a city is adventurous for me. And I rode down to. I first walked to the river. I walked one way. I looked for the duck forever. I was like, "Where is this duck at?" Like, I wanted to take a picture. I was going to take a selfie with it. And then I got on a scooter. I was tired of walking, and I started scooting around. I saw they had taken it down, so I was so bummed. I got there like at 5 o'clock. If I'd forego my meal instead of being a fatty, I would have been able to see the duck on the river. This is though just another example of just the brilliant marketing strategy of Oregon, right? It's not even Oregon's day. Oregon's day is tomorrow at Big Ten Media Day. And yet we started yesterday talking here about Oregon. Yeah. Everyone's talking about Oregon at the Big Ten Media, not even their day, right? Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, spoke yesterday as well. And all everyone talked about on social media was this duck that Oregon put on the river. And it's just brilliant marketing, continued success of this advertising marketing by Oregon. We're talking about Oregon. And again, the point of that is hype, recruiting, all those things that matter, right? Attention that matter. Recruits see that stuff. Recruits love things like that, man. So I thought it was just really brilliant of them.
Yeah, Jeff Schwarz is joining us, former Oregon offensive lineman, 8-year offensive lineman, Sirius XM. You can catch him on that, Fox Sports as well, and his new show, Jeff Schwarz is Smarter Than You podcast. There is it's it's wild to see. Not only are they new to the conference, but they've kind of become the storyline. Texas had a little bit of this at SEC Media Day, and it's like they haven't played a conference game, and I feel like people already kind of hate Oregon just because of the amount of eyeballs they take from everybody else in that conference already. Like Brett Bielema, nobody knew what you said because everybody was looking at a photo of a floating duck in a river.
Yeah, it's impressive to see where Oregon has become. I mean, to come into a conference as storied as this one, and Michigan won the championship last season. Like, there's a lot to talk about in this conference, and a lot of attention is focused on Oregon, and that's because of the football first and foremost, right? I mean, what Dan Lanning has done and staff of bringing in a very talented roster, having success in his first 2 seasons, it's impressive, and there are going to be a lot of attention on Oregon when they're here tomorrow. We talked a lot about them yesterday. We'll do it again today because they're the team that a lot of teams are chasing, right? They're chasing Ohio State, but they're also chasing Oregon. So it's nice that we've gone to this point where we're a university that is looked at in this way for the football program.
I'm curious, Kirby Smart makes a joke at his former colleague Dan Lanning in Oregon and says, I wish I could get some of that Phil Knight Nike money. And Rob Mullins told the Oregonian that, like, it makes him uncomfortable that everybody just gives NIL money as the reason why Oregon's doing well. One, your thoughts of just Oregon kind of being disruptors and upsetting the world because they're recruiting so well and getting talent. And two, what stands out to Jeff Schwarz, former Oregon guy who covers college football? What stands out about Dan Lanning that's different from what they've had?
Well, I remember I was at that game in Atlanta. Oregon lost 49-3, right? I was at that game. I think, and afterwards, I think Kirby Smart said something like, paraphrase, like, Dan Lanning knows we have better players. So they went and got better players, Kirby. Like you said, they need better players. They did exactly what you said, which is go get better football players. The Oregon's NIL, Phil Knight, Nike, it's a boogeyman. You can just say it whenever you want to deflect blame or put blame or, use as an excuse. And teams and coaches and media members just do that all the time. The fact is, a small percentage of players go to colleges for the money alone, right? Oregon's competing routinely with Ohio State, Texas, A&M, some schools in the South. Do you think Oregon has a definitively better offer than these other schools? No, they're about the same. They all talk. They know sort of what they're getting offered, because especially if you go visit LSU and you come back to Oregon and say, hey, I need an extra $100,000, they sort of know what LSU's offering, right? Mm-hmm. And Oregon doesn't get every player they want. If they did, then I think you could make a better argument that they just pay for everyone, but they don't, right? The reason why Oregon has success in the NIL space is the organization and the operational wherewithal of Division Street. It is the best run NIL. It is run by professionals who understand business and marketing and advertising. Oregon does not break the rules, right? They don't show up to some recruit's house with a bag of cash. You have to get on campus before you receive any money, which is the way that NIL works. There's also requirements for things you have to do in the community to get that money. They're not just giving you money for free. I mean, so there's many reasons why the Oregon NIL program functions the way it is. And the other thing that is just naive on the part of a lot of people is, everyone looks at Oregon and thinks it's just Phil Knight. I'm telling you, and Oregon fans know this, it's not just Phil Knight, guys. And I know Phil's getting up in age, and there's plans in place, everyone. Like this idea that Oregon's just going to disappear. Oregon has lots of boosters. Again, it's one program working together. They all have the same goal. They let smart, competent people run the NIL program, and that is part of the reason why. You mentioned Dan Lanning. He is young. He's my age. He's 38, man. He understands these kids now. The Gen Z, Gen X, whatever they are, Gen A now. I don't even know what age group he's recruiting. They're different than millennials and boomers and Gen X. And Dan Lanning knows how to talk to them, knows how to relate to them. I think that the parents really trust that Lanning has the best interest out for their kids, and he's not going anywhere. I mean, if he took down Alabama, which I know he did, where's he going to go? He's not going anywhere else. So if you send your kid there, Lanning's not leaving. And other things that I think are advantageous, like Oregon's sending a bunch of kids to the NFL now, which we didn't for a while, all over the place, right? Wide receiver, which is a position for as good as Oregon's offense has been over the years, didn't really send many wide receivers to the NFL. Offensive linemen, quarterbacks, cornerbacks. Well, this year we'll send more defensive linemen to the NFL, linebacker. I mean, we're sending all everywhere. So now when you come to Oregon, you get the really well-run NIL program, plus you get to go to the NFL. And you get a coach that you trust to be there and nurture your kids. And so it makes it easy sell.
Yeah. Jeff Schwarz is our guest here, former Oregon offensive lineman. We got a couple more for you before we let you go here, Jeff. Our producer today is Will Ortner. He played offensive line in college. He had an offensive line question. You are smarter than everybody else, and so I'm curious to see where this goes with offensive line-based question from an offensive lineman to an offensive lineman.
Jeff, I think the biggest growth that you've seen in Oregon in the last 5 years isn't that NIL has come in and they're buying everybody, right? It's the growth of the offensive line position as a whole. When Chip Kelly took those teams to deep title contending runs, it always felt like when they went against a Florida State or they went against an Ohio State, they just lost the war in the trenches. Yes. How has Coach Lanning gone out and been able to recruit top-end high school offensive line talent? But then really, how has he been able to develop them? Because they seem to get better every single year. What are they doing in that program?
Well, the first thing is identifying, big bodies. It started with Mario Cristobal, right? He came and just changed the blueprint for the body structure that you need to have to win, right? You need big guys. Chip Kelly just wasn't he didn't recruit big offensive linemen like 330, 325, and Lanning and Mario have recruited bigger players. Then it comes down to obviously the development of their talent. And we had Alex Maribel's offensive line coach, who's at Miami with Mario, was great. Clem was great. And then Alik Terry is fantastic. He's 30 years old. I think a really savvy hire of adding Mike Kavanaugh as an analyst, who's a 30-year offensive line coach, was important. So that's one thing that Lanning has hired really good coaches, and the development of the players has been important to Oregon's success. And they can punch you in the mouth. They can pass protect. They can do everything you need to win, and you're going to need that against Ohio State, Michigan this year. Those two teams with their defensive lines, you need an offensive line like Oregon's.
Jeff, I'm curious, when you think of this Oregon team, my co-host, who coincidentally booked a vacation at this time, we didn't know the date, and so he is out today. He's an Oregon alum, and he's been following and covers this team pretty closely. He thinks on paper this could be the most talented team. I'm curious. I don't know if that would where you put that kind of stuff. You're a former player, so maybe hate that, but your thoughts on that? And they're just like, when you think of this year's Oregon team, they get Dylan Gabriel to replace Bo. They're loaded at receiver. Just your overall thoughts of how far can this Oregon team go? Can this Oregon team get to a title game?
On paper, they can. I mean, you look at the talent they have and the depth. I mean, depth is so important in a playoff structure where you have to, to get to a title game, you got to at least play 2 games, maybe 3, and you need that depth in really a couple places. Defensive line, which I think Oregon is building and done a good job there. And you need depth, in my opinion, at the cornerback position, because you're going to face Ohio State that has 3 wide receivers that go in the NFL, maybe more, right? Like you need, and we got with Muhammad and some of the other additions, we've gotten enough cornerbacks now, I think, to just cycle those guys through in a game and not be concerned when your backup is in, which hurt us a lot against Washington last year when backups came in or the safeties were attacked in that game. And so I think the depth there is hugely important. And 2, getting Dante Moore, and I've heard Austin Novosed's actually done a really good job as well. But having that backup quarterback is important. You never know, man, right? You don't want to lose a season to a quarterback getting hurt when you have a talented roster like this. I'm not saying that Dante Moore or Novosed is better than Dylan Gabriel, but the idea is you have a competent backup who can get you through either a couple weeks without a quarterback or win you games for the rest of the season with a talented roster around them. So I think there's no doubt this is the most talented roster we've had at Oregon, and the job now is to go out and execute.
Yeah, good stuff. Jeff Schwarz, former Oregon offensive lineman, NFL offensive lineman. You can catch him on Sirius XM Fox Sports as well. And what do we got coming up on Jeff Schwarz? I'm smarter than you. I love that you're doing a show like this.
We should be back next week.
Okay.
We're gonna start previewing the season. I mean, we do a lot of NFL in that show, so we'll start with our division previews, and we'll throw a couple college wagers in there as well. So looking forward to getting going. We got NFL training camps starting up, man. So should have pads on pretty soon. Hall of Fame games in, I don't know, week-ish away, and football will be here before we know it.
Yeah, we're really excited. Thanks so much for joining us, man. We'd love
Thanks
to
for
get you
having
on
me.
during the season. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, there we go. Jeff Schwarz, former Oregon offensive lineman there, joining us here. We'll be back with some thoughts on what he said there and a whole lot more to get into. Dirt and Sprague on the Fan.
This is a Big Ten Media
sports, not minor league, major league, all of sports. The Portland Pickles, who I think just had a Simpsons night, they do a bunch of theme nights, which make the games enjoyable and entertaining. Coming up on Saturday at Walker Stadium, they are launching a rocket to Uranus.
Nice.
So there you go.
Dude, those games are a great time.
Every time I see them, people are stumbling and spinning and falling, and they've got old people coming out of the stands and throwing, and it's a good time over there at Lentz Park, and the Portland Pickles do a good job of pubbing themselves, being active on social, and coming up with good themes. And so they're going to launch a rocket, and their plan is to launch that rocket to Uranus.
It's fantastic. Also, if you want a beer bat, buy it really early, because if you wait till the third
they go
inning,
quick, yeah.
Yeah, they run out.
They're gone.
Had no idea. Had to buy the stupid ice cream.
Interesting stuff from Jeff Schwarz. You're never going to get people to say, okay, I changed my take on this. Oregon is a recruiting juggernaut now, and Kirby Smart called it out at SEC Media Day, and Dan Lanning responded, who we hope to talk to tomorrow at around 9:45 a.m. That'll be our last segment of the day. Dusty will join me for that. Said the Wabbit has the gun now. We flipped it on Elmer Fudd, and now Oregon's got the gun, and so people are freaking out. I saw Orem's article at Oregon Live where Rob Mullins says he feels uneasy of people just saying Oregon's buying all the players. He says it's much more than that, and so does Jeff Schwarz. We got a tweet during the interview that says, let's be real, if Oregon didn't have Phil Knight backing, they would still be just a mediocre team that wouldn't have been invited to the Big Ten. After Phil's no longer around, I see some of that money going away. To which I would say, I think Jeff Schwarz hinted at that's not a thing. The Phil Knight estate probably has something in line. And oh, by the way, we do a bit of a disservice to Oregon in the realm of Phil Knight is the biggest, the most influential, but like they still have people donating lots of money. So you're always going to get that debate of Oregon's just buying every player, and certainly I think it's part of the equation. I don't even think Dan Lanning has shied away from that. Like, their NIL collective, their situation absolutely helps them. What you don't get a lot in that sport, in that conversation, is there's a little bit of a middle ground here. We can admit that the backing, the supporting, the resources, the NIL, all of that stuff is definitely top end. Also, Dan Lanning is doing this very, very well. All of that stuff, NIL wasn't quite around, but like most of this stuff was around with Mario, and he was doing a good job. Dan Lanning has improved it. And so I think there's a little more middle ground in that conversation than people would care to admit, Will.
Well, I think the real thing about it is that people aren't giving enough credit to Mike Bellotti or to Chip Kelly or even Mark Helfrich. Like, most of the kids
You
that
stop
are
it right there. You stop it right there.
at least for the
Helfrich.
first
Come on.
year. Hey,
Come on.
Hey, he went to a natty. He went to a
Stop
natty
it. The
and
first
he
year,
coached. Yep. But here's what
He
I'm
was
saying.
a non-play calling offensive coordinator who just took exactly what Chip left and just rolled it in. We saw who Mark Helfrich was at the end.
Right, but here's what I'm saying about all that, though. All these kids that are turning 16, 17, 18, right now that you're recruiting, that's what they remember of Oregon. That's how they think about Oregon. They
The Chip
think
stuff's
about
almost too old for most of them.
the
'Cause that was
Bellotti stuff
2010,
probably
2011,
is.
2012.
Right. That's what these kids think about. They're like, this is Oregon. They have the cool, flashy jerseys. They go out and they win a lot of football games.
Mhm.
They play in the blur offense.
Yep.
I'm going to be on TV all the time. I'm going to have a chance at winning a national championship.
Sick uniforms, top-end Nike stuff, exclusive
Right.
Jordans, all that stuff.
And that's why they're getting these recruits. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not an idiot. If they didn't have any NIL money, Oregon wouldn't be getting as many recruits as they are. But I think that we downplay the prestige that Oregon has given themselves the last 20 years. Like, in my lifetime, and I'm slightly older than this group of recruits that are coming in. It's an 8-year gap,
Yeah.
which isn't that big, but it is at this age, right? I only think of Oregon as winning. I think of Jonathan Stewart. I think of LaMichael James, Kenyon Barner, just running
Mariota.
roughshod over people. DeAnthony Thomas
Right.
being fantastic. Dennis Dixon coming out and dominating, right? So you think about all these great players. That's in the last 20 years. That's all these kids know. All they know about Oregon is that they're awesome. They don't know that Tennessee used to be good in the 90s. No one cares about that at that age. They care about what's happening now.
I think what we can, yeah, and then you said it earlier with something else, but I think it's a chicken and an egg thing. Like, we know how it was launched, how it was started, how it's been brought up. Like, nobody's talking about that. What you're hitting at is they have established branding. Powerful, standalone branding that sticks out massively. I mean, yesterday, like, if I asked college football fan who maybe is a big fan but not a diehard per se, right? Like, wake me when the games start. Not so much like the off-season stuff. Would they have been able to identify what programs were talking yesterday at Big Ten Media Day?
No.
Like, maybe Ohio State. Maybe. Nobody knew Rutgers and Illinois and Purdue. Like, yesterday was about a floating duck more than it was almost anything else.
Right. They won the
That's
day.
branding. That's smart marketing. That they are they're one of the last teams to talk at Big Ten Media Day. They're in the group tomorrow.
Right.
And today and yesterday, massive Oregon stuff. That speaks to what the brand has kind of become, to your point.
Yeah, they've won marketing. And I mean, it probably starts with the Joey Harrington billboard, which I'm just young enough that I don't really remember it.
All right,
like,
now
to me,
you need to stop. Now you're making me feel really old because that was a huge deal back in the day.
See, but that's what I'm saying, though. So, like, when I come in, my first memory is Jonathan Stewart, Dennis Dixon, those teams, Jeff Schwarz, those fantastic teams. What did they do? They went into the big house and they won. But then when they won against Michigan, they were swinging the sledgehammer and they had a bunch of Oregon stuff on. That's
the Statue of Liberty, the fake Statue of Liberty, like
Right.
all those flashy, cool plays when Chip got there.
They were doing the crazy stuff before
Mhm.
people were doing that. Back then, you still had an I formation. You'd run a fullback. You ran the ball 3 times in a row. And hey, it's 4th down, but it's 4th and 1, so we can run it again. They
Right.
were doing read options. They were the originators of this zone read RPO new system that's, kind of come into college football that's everywhere. It's even in the NFL nowadays. So in a lot of this younger generation's mind, they are in the forefront, not only of offensive innovation, but of that branding of they're going to have the crazy unis. They were the first to have the gloves where you got the O in the middle. That was sick. I remember in middle school being like, I have to buy Oregon gloves
Chrome
because
Dome.
it's got the O's.
The chrome helmet.
The wings that they had at the Rose Bowl when they took on Wisconsin. Those are the things that kids remember. And look, they haven't won a title yet, but they're about as close as any team that hasn't won a title in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's going to be enough to say, hey, look, we have the championship prestige. We're right there.
We will get to Ohio State at the top of the 8 a.m. hour. We will take a quick pause and break from football, and we will talk about something that a local head coach said on a podcast. That's next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
may have Jack Velling, former Oregon State tight end, who's now at Michigan State. We will not have Jonathan Smith. Shocking development. He doesn't want to talk. We may have Steve Hellwagon, who covers Ohio State. I'll get to some Ohio State dealings at the top of this hour. You can find Crunch at crunch.com. They've got tons of locations as low as $9.99 a month. Visit them, crunch.com. Get some basketball dealings here. Let's take a quick pause in our football stuff. And by the way, you can reach the text line at 503-864-6326. That's the Vancouver Ford text line because they treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. I cannot log in. My Vibes is not working.
Oh, I'm in.
So I'm sorry I have not responded or seen any text to anything, so I apologize on that. That's not me ignoring. That's me simply saying I can't log into the website. And also, the show has been so just kind of all over the place, as naturally you would expect on a Big Ten Media Day. We're B1G Oregon now. So it's just been wild and crazy. We had the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers on the Carmelo Anthony podcast yesterday reveal that he had a player in a game against New Orleans did something incredibly stupid. Here is the audio.
We in New Orleans. We're down like 18 at the half. I had a kid, he had a nasty dunk. We coming out for the third quarter. This motherfucker done posted his dunk on his joint.
Stop it.
At halftime.
Yo, stop.
Yo, at halftime,
Hey,
bro, we down 18.
You got to optimize those numbers.
What you do, though? Man, you know I grinded his up, man. I get wind of it. I said, hey, yo, bro, get the back there and take that down off your joint, man. What the is wrong with you, man? Yeah. My bad, coach. He run to the back. We getting boned, bro. We down 18. He posted joint at halftime. I said, man, what is going on?
I checked the Rip City Reddit page. Most people think, because they've dug into this, 18 points at the half in New Orleans specifically is what he cited. Most people think this was Nasir Little.
That's awesome.
Which may or may not track.
Hey, look.
Greg Brown was my first guess, as everybody else kind of threw out there. Like, if there was anybody to do something like that, wouldn't it be two-way Greg Brown? But as many people went and looked, Greg Brown didn't have a dunk in that first half. And everybody that talked about this, at least on the Reddit page, was like, I remember watching this game, Nas had a sick dunk. So it's probably Nas Little.
Of course he posted it. I can't tell you how many times the people at halftime of college games or, pro football games. Oh, I gotta tweet out that sick play.
Really?
That guy got that. Oh yeah.
I just, I'm of the era that's just like slightly older than you, and by slightly I mean way older than you. We didn't really have phones most of my entire middle school, high school life. Actually, we didn't really have phones till senior year of high school, and that was even like a couple people, not everybody.
You had the Razor?
I didn't have a phone.
Wow.
My senior year of high school.
I had a Razor.
I'd use my mom's to text girls.
Nice.
But I just can't fathom a world where I'm like getting into halftime, man, it's a sick 20-yard catch here. And I'm going to go repost it, or like ever being in a position where that's going through my head of, let me repost a highlight in the middle of a game.
I had buddies that be on Tinder.
Swiping right at halftime?
Oh, dude,
That's
if you're up big, now you don't do it when you're down 18. That's just a bad look. You got to be smarter than that, Nas, or whoever it was.
Or whoever
it was.
I don't think we have it confirmed
Whoever
yet.
it was, allegedly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we were up big, there were dudes swiping on Tinder. Got to find out what's going on in Burnaby. Got to find out what's going on in Humboldt. It's just one of those things. It's one of the battles I think that a lot of college coaches and probably professional coaches have to battle now, especially with the younger generation. Like, as soon as something sick happens, you post it. That's what you do on Instagram. Like, oh, at the Mariners game, got to make sure I get this story out. Got to make sure everyone knows my life is sick and theirs sucks.
Well, so I can acknowledge that, like, I don't feel comfortable in that world because, like, that's not what we did. I, however, would like to respond and say, like, would I care a whole lot if I was a coach?
If you're down 18, yes. If you're not down, who cares?
Well, it's not a good look, I think, maybe for your culture and your organization, I guess, if an athlete is going and, like, that's what they care about, being down 18 points. But If I found out if we won, an athlete had reposted something at halftime, I don't know how I'd handle that as a coach. I want to say I'm pretty player-friendly coach. I don't yell and scream the way coaches did at me my whole life. I like to think that I'd pull him to the side and calmly be like, hey,
don't do that.
Cool moment. It was great. Can we not? But also maybe I'd just be in on that world now because that world has to be so appeasing to the player that you, I don't know, tend not to care. But Chauncey's also old school, and he played in an era where they didn't have cell phones.
Well, I think what most college and professional players learn is it's just a bad look in general. It's the same thing as like you're posting the 40 that you bought or the bottle that you bought when you go out at night. And then, oh, hey, I feel sick the next morning. I got to call in sick for work.
Right.
Your coworkers are going to see that.
Yes.
It's something that everyone kind of has to go through. Like I remember mine where it's like, this is sick. I'm hanging out with my buddies and I'm in Seattle. Oh, there was an optional workout that you were supposed to be at. Or, I had a roommate in college who he was legitimately sick. I watched him, have his sickness. That was his issue. Well, on his story from the night before was him going and hanging out with the boys and, being out too late. They're doing whatever they were doing.
Sure.
And so then he misses work and everyone's like, well, he missed work because he was out partying too much. And it's like, no, I watched him. He is sick. I took him to the doctor. I know he's sick, but no one else took him to the doctor, so you don't know. It's something that whoever that player was had to learn, and everyone has to learn it at some point. I mean, Shedeur Sanders was posting like, buy my sunglasses and buy my wristwatch at halftimes of games. So it's just something that it's a part of growing up now. Like you have to learn that lesson. And it happens, and then you hopefully never do it again. And if you're an idiot, you do it again and again and again, and you wonder, why do I keep getting in trouble? I just want to live.
I just think it's funny Chauncey sharing these stories publicly on podcasts. He's just going into maybe his last year as a Blazer coach saying, yeah, let me tell you some stories. Basketball coverage on the Fan is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile, and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. User savings calculator. Find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. A lot to get to in the second hour of the radio program. Ryan Day talked yesterday. A couple takeaways I had. Some things about Ohio State. Get to that 8 a.m. hour next on the Fan. HD2 and YouTube as well. It's been a very, very busy morning for us. Starts at 4 a.m. every day, but today it's a 4 a.m. to, oh my God, it's already 8 in the morning, and we've done an hour of interviews. We talked with Jeff Schwarz, Heather Denich, Miller Moss, the quarterback of USC. You can find those podcasts at 1080thefan.com. Good stuff from Jeff Schwarz, Heather Denich, and we didn't talk to him for very long, but I enjoyed talking with Miller Moss. He's pretty excited about being the new starting quarterback for Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans, who kick off their season against LSU on a Sunday night standalone game, ABC. I always enjoy that one standalone Sunday night college football game. I think Florida State LSU comes to my mind, but looking forward to this year's one. I think LSU's the better team, but I also kind of like USC to surprise some people. I think they'll be a little better than people give them credit, at least right now. I'm not in the Paul Feinbaum camp of fire that guy for the 4-win Deion Sanders. We'll do a statter story. Will's got statter story. So we'll do some statter story. We'll join Swag coming up. He'll hop on the show at 8:15. We may have Steve Hellwagon, who covers Ohio State. I want to talk about them coming up here. And today, we're going to 10. We will be on till 10 a.m. and then hand it over to Danny and Dusty, and they're going to go 10 to 3. So we got a 4-hour workload. They've got a 5-hour workload, as there's a lot of moving parts at B1G Media Day. Ohio State, probably the only thing to talk about. Oh, okay. All right. We'll pivot out. Jack Velling, the tight end for Michigan State, is actually going to join us now. Swag's got him on the headset, and he joins us at Big Ten Media Day. I hope you know, Jack, it kind of hurts me to introduce you. Once upon a time, I would have said, Oregon State tight end, my alma mater, and now you're a Spartan. How's it all been going for you, man?
It's been good. Got out here, January, and it's been, pretty smooth sailing. Just kind of getting the biggest difference is just, the weather and getting used to, snow in March, which is, not doesn't happen in Oregon, but it's been pretty good.
Now, I understand there's a lot that goes into big decisions. You move from one state to another, one program to another. Let's get some honesty out of you, Jack. There was a moment when it snowed and you said, I don't know if I made the right decision. There's like a 10-minute window where that went through your brain, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, the weather's never great. But you know what? I want to walk through that. So you find out Coach is going to go to East Lansing, which is a whole other conversation for Beaver fan. What goes through your mind? Like, what's instantly going through Jack Velling's mind at that point?
A lot. Confusion, uncertainty. It was, a really hard time, and I, definitely one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. Because I loved everything. Corvallis was awesome. Oregon State was great. It was so good. But I just had to make the decision that I thought is right for me, and that was following Coach Smith and Coach Waz and the rest of the staff.
Did you have a feeling going into maybe the last game that this was something to think about, or was this something that hit you out of left field? Because there's been like mixed reporting on that of some people had an idea, some people didn't. Where were you at on all that stuff?
Yeah, there was, rumors. Obviously, I'm not, everyone heard rumors, and I that was exactly where I just had rumors, and I didn't know, if this was the real deal or what, and kind of the whole team, we all went that last game, focused on the game and that being that, and then kind of the next day is kind of when we all figured what really happened.
Yeah, you follow Jonathan, the offense. We saw what it was in Corvallis, and now he takes it to East Lansing. We know what it means for a tight end too, and you had a really good season for Oregon State last year. It seemed like every catch you had was at least 15 yards. I am curious though, when you're finding out Coach is leaving, the shock, the awe, the all of it. Is there anybody within Oregon State that's talking to you and maybe trying to convince you, like, hey, keep with us? Like, how does that process work for guys who are thinking about the portal?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of all when Coach he had left and then a bunch of the guys at Oregon State, we were all kind of sitting unsure about what was going to happen, and what they were going to do, hiring what coach, and obviously they hired Coach Bray, and that was the best hire they could have made. I love Coach Bray, and he's going to do fantastic things out there. So Coach Bray and I have we had conversations, and overall it was a bummer of a situation, but I know Oregon State is going to be in good hands with Coach Bray.
What about Michigan State have you liked so far? You guys aren't coming in here with high expectations according to the odds makers. Not that matters a whole lot or needs to matter, but I'm curious how it's looked to you. You take Oregon State and you go east a little bit. What Jonathan and the coaching staff that he took with him to East Lansing, what have they implemented so far that feels familiar, and what is different about it than it was in Corvallis?
Yeah, you talk about, having the odds against us, and I think that's a good thing. I like it. I like, being the underdog, and, Coach Smith and his staff, they've done it before. They've, where they took Oregon State and how they've been doing now. And so, I'm excited. It feels pretty similar, with obviously a bunch of new faces, new different, locker room facility, all just different, but similar. So it feels kind of, it kind of just feels like home, and yeah, it's been great so far.
If I would have told you a year ago you're going to be at Big Ten Media Day next year, what would you have told me? If I didn't even tell you the coach left, if I'm like, hey, Jack, next year you'll be in Indianapolis talking to me at Big Ten Media Day, your thought at that point right now would have been what?
I would have been, you're crazy. What are you talking about?
What are you expecting from yourself this year, given knowing the offense, being familiar of what Jonathan's looking for, the schemes, the way you guys are in run blocking, all of it? What do you have for expectations for yourself?
I think just a stack on last year, just one step further than what we did last year, and we're not looking back, but just keep improving, and the rest will work itself out.
Jack Velling, our guest here, tight end at Michigan State, former Oregon State Beaver. He transferred. He portaled over to East Lansing. He followed Jonathan Smith as they go over there in year one. You were not alone in the portal. It wasn't just coaches that left with Jonathan. There were multiple players, and one of them that ultimately made the decision to go to East Lansing is your quarterback, Aiden Childs.
Yeah.
And, we didn't see him a whole lot. There was a point in the year, and I know you guys had a good year, but there was a point where I was like, could we see him a little more than what was going on there? A lot of people in East Lansing may not be familiar, but some of us out west were really high on what Aiden Childs could be this year. What is the move? I know you're kind of talking for him here, but what's the move been for him, and how has that looked in maybe workouts this summer with him and building more chemistry?
Yeah, I think he's settled in great. If anyone that knows Aiden, they know he's a stand-up guy, and he's just an awesome dude to be around. He's going to make friends with anyone, the guy on the street. So, he's doing just fine. He's kind of stepping into more of that leader role. Last year, obviously, DJ, obviously he was just the starter for us, and so Aiden he learned a lot from DJ, and I think slowly he's morphing into that leader, that starting quarterback. He's been great in summer workouts. Spring ball was great. It's gonna be pretty cool to watch.
Are you already instantly in the hatred of rivals from Big Ten? That's been the weird part about all this is you go from Pac-12 hatred, rivalry stuff, and I know you're a Pacific Northwest guy, so you're familiar with most of the rivalries we had, but now these teams are jumping conferences, and you've gone to a different conference. How much does Jack Velling hate Michigan already? Is that in your blood yet, or is that something you got to kind of work through and feel?
No, definitely. I think it's a little bit of both. It's in my blood. Just having even just worked out. Just being here. And working out and going through. Every day with these guys, my teammates. It's kind of shot into me almost. But I think for sure it's going to be a field thing as well. I'm going to, get to the school down there and be in that stadium, and I'm going to feel it probably a little more, So, but it's pretty cool, even just talking to alumni, and we we got coaches on the staff that graduated from here, and it's a pretty cool cool rivalry, but definitely some hatred there.
Is your coach the same? Like, is it exactly the same as Oregon State, or he's in the Big Ten now, and it's a whole new thing for him too? Like, that was an alum of Oregon State, and he had kind of led you guys back to being a really good, respectable program. I'm curious if he's the same coach exactly, or if there have been any tweaks that you've kind of noticed just about him being in the Big Ten and being at East Lansing.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the same, Coach Smith. He's not going to change from his his ways and what he's been so successful with. But like everything, there's some getting used to with whatever it is. So, but no, it's the same Coach Smith, and it's pretty cool to see.
How tall are you exactly, Jack?
I would say 6'5", but my strength coach would probably say 6'4".
Okay. Oh yeah, a basketball player type thing, right? Where you get that extra inch and a half maybe on the
exactly.
the pamphlet. I'll get you out of here on this. The reason I asked that question is I just wondered, did you also drop anything off at Goodwill that I could go pick up? I'm a little shorter than you, but I'm curious what you made of all of that where Coach Smith's stuff was popping up.
It's funny. That's when I came out on a visit here. It was kind of right in the middle of that, and I asked him, and he's like, he's like, that's just so annoying, because he's like, I do that every year. I have so much stuff that I have to get rid of every year, and it just happens to be, but you'd have to ask my mom about that. I don't, I think we ended up giving a lot to some of my my teammates back at Oregon State, their families and whatnot. So.
Well, we're rooting for you, man. We thank your time as an Oregon State Beaver. I wish you success and have a great experience over there in East Lansing. And thanks for hopping on with us, man. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
All right, there we go. Good stuff from Jack Velling, tight end, formerly of my Oregon State Beavers, now at Michigan State. Let's talk a little bit about that. I'll push the Ryan Day stuff out as Jack Velling just joined us there. He did not donate his clothes to the Goodwill, but he says,
I wish he did. We're the same size.
You're the same size as him.
Say 6'5", but really 6'4".
He, interesting that Jonathan's response was, I do this every year. And I'm like, maybe you do, but I feel like we would have caught wind of that prior. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did do that every year.
Seems fishy.
Let's talk a little bit about Michigan State and their fit in the Big Ten and Jonathan's fit in that conference. We'll get to that next on The Fan. Dirt and Sprague here, a B1G Media Week edition of the show. We just talked with former Oregon State tight end Jack Velling, who's now over at Michigan State. If you missed that interview or any interviews we do at B1G, you can find him at 1080thefan.com. He told us he did not donate any of his Beaver gear to the local Goodwill. Instead, he opted to give it to family, friends, and former teammates. He did say Jonathan Smith was aware of that story circulating and that it kind of bothered him because he told Velling that he always did a Goodwill drop-off at the end of the year because he had so much Beaver gear that he would just donate it to Goodwill. And so the fact that it became, hey, the coach bailed and his gear's been dropped off, he didn't quite understand. He also acknowledged that they basically knew that he was gone going into that Civil War game. You know, he didn't really say that per se, but, like, that's kind of my takeaway. Also didn't sound like for a second he thought of staying at Oregon State.
No, well, look, sometimes, it sucks, but
it's a system, it's a conference, there's a lot to those decisions. I don't begrudge any player.
It's a better option, and I know, and I hate to say that to a Beaver fan.
You didn't need to say that. You need to say it out loud there, Will.
I know, but there comes a time and a place where you have to do what's best for you.
No,
they tell you that all the time.
Mountain
and
West
it
or Big
sucks.
Ten football.
I
mean, that's not much of a hard conversation, especially in a system you already know, so you'd be very familiar with everything going on there. Good stuff from Jack Velling. Let's get to a statter story, but we're going to welcome in Swag. Swag has been a madman running around Indy. Swag, good morning. How is life?
Life is better today than yesterday.
Really? Why is that?
I told you after I had a cocktail after yesterday, I felt like Tin Cup after the first round of the fake U.S. Open.
Yeah. You
humble now, Holmes.
Yes, you are. You've navigated the situation a little better today, I think.
So yes, our legwork prior to getting out here is paying off a little bit more today.
Well, also, we know you, so probably bothering people on a second day. They're like, fine, we'll give you something here.
I'm trying to be so respectful and meet all the SIDs, and so, that's one thing, and asking them about, okay, during the regular season and not, but at the same point, trying to see if we can jump in. It is an artful dance. It's one I'm not generally comfortable with myself.
Sure.
And one that, I wish we didn't have to do.
I love that you're asking SIDs about in-season things as if they'll ever respond to our emails and give us anything.
That's what I asked. It's like, when do you like to receive the request? I said, where's the sweet spot if we wanted to do something the week of the game? How far out in advance? And though I will say they're all pretty honest with me. It's like, some of them are like, don't expect coach during the week, but maybe a player or something. So intel is always good, and at least it helps us strategize during the season. It's like, okay, we're not getting this. Is there a player that you want? Or, hey, maybe coach likes to do stuff early in the week, so if you want coach, you're going to get him on Monday or Tuesday. Fantastic. We know what we're dealing with. And that's the biggest issue behind the scenes, is just as long as we know what we're dealing with.
Dude, we aired Tony Petitti live. That was a big mistake. That guy did nothing at the podium yesterday. All he
went on for quite a while.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
So, I know Deshaun Foster's getting set to go from UCLA. So,
right.
We'll see. What do you guys have cooked up? I have no idea. I don't know. The time zone's screwing me up. This is the worst.
No, that's okay. So Will has 3 here. I'm just going to let Will he spend his time doing it. I'm going to let Will kind of start us off here with a statter story. So we'll guess statter story, and Will will let us know if we're right or wrong.
All right, so for my first statter story, my number is 83. Is that the number of points Dylan Gabriel received when he won Big Ten Preseason Offensive Player of the Year? Or is that the year the Hoosier Dome opened for the very first time in Indianapolis?
Oh, Swag, you would know that answer.
Oh, 1983, the Hoosier Dome.
I'm going to say it's a stat.
I did not. I'm going to say that's a story.
I don't have a dinger. Found
Sure
that
you do.
drop.
There you go.
Where's the dinger, Swag?
I know where the dinger is. Hold on.
Upper left corner.
It's upper left, yeah. And
Oh,
the buzzer's
this one?
right next to it.
No, not that
Oh,
one.
wrong.
Page.
Oh,
Go over a
wrong
page. Go
hotkey
left.
page.
Go left.
Oh.
We're not
I
spitting
can't-
on that thing.
I can't find it. Sprague, you get the ding. Swag, you do not.
When did the Hoosier Dome open?
The Hoosier Dome opened in August 5th, 1984.
Oh,
Also
okay.
known as the RCA Dome.
RCA Dome.
Ah,
I
okay.
forgot that it wasn't always Lucas Oil.
No.
Oh, it's
this
the
is-
RCA Dome to me in my head.
Right. Like I forgot.
Yeah,
like
no.
I thought when Peyton Manning played, he played all those years in
Oh,
Lucas Oil. Did not
RCA.
realize.
No,
you
they
know?
had the big billowy,
Yep.
billowy fake tent thing. Didn't it collapse in a snowstorm one year? Or am I thinking of a different?
That
you're
might have
thinking
been
of
Minnesota.
That was Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota's collapsed before they blew up and built the stadium.
For the second one, my number is 25.
25.
Is that the age of Hugh Robertson, the junior punter for Illinois? Or is that the amount of millions the Big Ten football championship brought in to Indianapolis in 2020?
For city revenue?
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is a
That's his
stat.
age. That's the age of the
That
punter.
has to be the age of the punter.
They brought in more money than
You think
that.
those are the stats?
Well, hold on. Because last year they had a really experienced punter. He got like a standing ovation.
Same punter.
Okay, then I'm going to say it's a stat. He's old. Damn it.
Wow.
That is the amount of millions that they brought into Indianapolis last year during the Big Ten championship.
Boy,
Hugh
that's
Robertson was born before me in 1993.
Wow.
He graduated high school in 2011.
Jeez.
Looks like at some
Did
point.
he serve somewhere? What happened here?
It says former member of the Australian Army. I don't totally know what
all
that
right,
means.
there you go.
International
But do you
guy who
have
got
to?
caught on late. Okay, all
He
right.
spent 7 years working for the Victoria Police in Australia.
Okay.
Wow.
And,
Utah
So
usually
did he
gets these
then-
guys.
Yeah, they
Right.
went to that one guy. The one guy has the kicking camp down there.
Yep.
He went down there. He played Australian rules football.
Of course he did.
beforehand. He's a Pro Kick Australia. Nathan Chapman and John Smith.
Probably a badass, too, when you get tackled by him. He's probably somebody that actually
Well, yeah,
likes
they
to
don't
tackle.
have any pads.
No.
I don't know how they put those uniforms on. Those are like mediums on extra large people.
That
He's
they
a
are.
he's a junior, so I think he can come back.
Jeez
He was
Louise.
all Big Ten or honorable mention last year.
Give me like 35.
Wonder if he
punting
still has his
college.
COVID year.
Yeah, he might.
Injury exemption.
Yeah, he should
There you
because 2020. Yeah, he should still have it there.
All right.
35-year-old punter.
Absolutely ridiculous. All right, my last number. 1902.
1902.
Okay.
Is that the year St. Elmo's Steakhouse was founded in Indianapolis? Or was that the year the Big Ten Conference was officially founded?
Ooh, swag. Are you
Ooh.
hitting St. Elmo's today?
I don't know. I all of a sudden have a executive producer conference call with the engineering department with Learfield Duck Sports after this is over. So
That's great.
that's my life.
Fun.
So I did walk by it. I'm gonna say I don't think the Big Ten is that old, so I'm gonna
Really?
go with St. Elmo.
Now, is it technically like you're saying it's called the Big Ten and not like the Big Eight or the Big something else? Are we talking about just the conference in general?
We're saying the conference in general. It
Okay.
might have had a different name, but
Okay.
we're saying the conference in general.
I'm going to say that this is a stat.
So you're saying St. Elmo, or are you saying?
Oh, yeah, good point. St.
Yeah.
Elmo would be the story here, I think, versus.
Yes.
I'm going to go this is the Big Ten.
This is the Big Ten. 1902 is the year that St. Elmo's was
Yeah.
founded.
Swag.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh, I keep thinking I'm finding the dinger. I'm not finding it at all.
You
You're
found
not
the
close.
dinger.
No,
That was it.
That's me.
Sprague.
That's me. I know
Oh,
that.
I'm
okay.
finding other things. And
Are
other
you on the
drops
right
today.
hotkey page? Sorry, we're
I-
producing on the air.
I
there's-
probably am.
There's the cha-ching.
Yeah, I've got the show parts and the
There it
rejoiners
is.
up.
That's me.
That's still
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I'm just laughing
He's
at right in
holding
the
a
butt.
laptop with one hand in the air while looking at a computer and talking on the air. To
While
you.
I'm watching this
While he's watching
fabulous Skims
television.
commercial with Sabrina Carpenter.
Swag, we've been having our heads cut off on this show,
it's-
man. It's been wild and all over the place.
It's a whole thing. So St. Elmo's was founded in 1902. What is now known as the Big Ten Conference was officially founded in 1896.
Oh, wow.
Damn it.
It's older.
I thought it'd be
Wow.
old, but
Yep, the founding members were the universities of Chicago, Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Purdue, and Northwestern.
Swag,
There
you
you
got to
go.
hit St. Elmo, man. You can't be there and not hit that restaurant one time.
We'll see. Maybe I can. I don't know. Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes.
I'm looking right now. Happy
gotta
hour
go.
menu. I mean,
Yeah.
they've
What's the shrimp cocktail?
they've got some calamari,
the big
grilled
thing.
bacon, and Asian lollipop wings, seasonal oysters.
There we go.
They got some really good drink deals for happy hour. I mean, you've got to go to St. Elmo's.
All right. Well, we'll see.
Come on, do it one time. Win in Rome.
Well, you know what? I
The
want to set
porterhouse
the
is
precedent.
$70. It's not even that much. The ribeye's $55.
It would be more fun to do it with by myself. Is just kind of weird.
Well, you have been doing it by yourself, so you just got to keep it going. You get a bone-in rib for $70. I know you like it bone-in.
Oh boy.
All right, there we go. Good stat or story, William. Very good job there.
Thank you.
Swag, good work. Keep it up. And, yeah, thanks for all the guests you've shot us.
Yeah, we're our boy Hellwagon's here. I just got to connect with him, so I'm hoping we get him on before the end of the show,
Okay.
and we'll see what else kind of ferrets out as well.
Okay, there we go. Good stuff. Swag live in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Day. Let's talk some Big Ten stuff. Ryan Day, Jonathan Smith. We'll get to that next on The Fan.
This is a Big Ten Media Week edition of Dirt and Sprague.
10 Media Day rolls on. We got some NFL stuff we can get to coming up here. In talking about Big Ten Media, yesterday was Ohio State's day. Excuse me, and they were the lone team. I mean, like there were other teams, but like Luke Fickell, I was kind of excited to watch Luke Fickell's opening press, podium thoughts and then questions. He filibustered. He talked and had just enough time for 2 questions, and then he talked too long on the 2 questions, and so he didn't really like have anything else. And I was just a little bummed by that because most of what he said at the podium when these guys filibuster is really nothing of substance. So yesterday was dominated by Ryan Day in Ohio State and a floating duck in a river. That was day 1 of Big Ten Media Day. Oregon will be tomorrow, as will Washington. But Ryan Day and Ohio State are kind of the team of teams. They were picked to win the conference. They're returning all this talent. They're openly telling you we're spending $20 million on our roster. Ryan Day's 56-8, and he's on a weird hot seat thing because he can't beat Michigan all of a sudden. Here was Ryan Day. Chip Kelly is now the OC. And I thought this was a good question. What is his role now that Chip will be the play caller? How will that change Ryan Day's vantage point as in-moment game coach, operating everything? Here was Ryan Day's thoughts on Chip Kelly calling plays and now his new role during games.
Going into each game, we'll have a game plan in place. Chip's here for a reason, to run the offense, but I think it's my job as the head coach to look on the horizon and figure out what's coming. And in this conference, have experience of what's coming down the road, the games we need to win, how we need to win, also with the type of players that we have. So that'll kind of be my input in the offense, knowing, what we're doing. And the great thing for he and I is, we see things the same way, and we've been in the same offense together in our careers. So I think there'll be a lot of that. But Chip's one of the best offensive minds in the history of college football, in my opinion, and he's a great play caller. So he's got to do that. He's just got to go and get a feel for our guys and let them call it. But in terms of the management of the game and everything, it allowed me an opportunity to be on both sides of the ball, including special teams, and have a great feel for that and making those decisions.
Me and Dirt have talked about this off the air. I find it so laughable. This guy's 56-8, and he's on some either made up media hot seat or actually Buckeye fans have about had it with
real.
him. You think this is real?
I think he is really
56-8, and there's a hot seat. He's a top 3 recruiter in the country.
It's Ohio State.
Okay, and
there are different challenges when it comes to Ohio State. Think about it this way. Let's say Alabama this year under Kalen DeBoer goes 9-4, 9-3,
9-3.
They don't make the playoff.
They would just barely miss it.
They have a good year.
Yep.
And then next year they just missed the playoffs again. A similar record, a 9-3, whatever. But one of those 3 losses is to Auburn. Is he not on the hot seat?
I don't think he is.
I think he would be because they expect championships, and that's what they expected Ohio State.
Okay, but
and you haven't beat Michigan.
Well, he has beaten Michigan.
Not in 3 years.
Not in 3
and
years.
That's what they care about.
Okay, but he's beaten Michigan.
Right.
We act like
4 years ago.
Okay. Yes. By the way, what did Michigan do the last couple of years that we found out last year?
They sold vacuums. They hired a vacuum salesman.
Vacuum salesman. Right. Exactly. Door to door. Harbaugh did what his first 4 years? Did he beat Ohio State?
No, he struggled. But he was on the hot seat too. If COVID doesn't happen,
there's a little bit of that.
He might have been fired.
That didn't happen. Yeah, my point is message boards might put Kalen DeBoer on a hot seat. Kalen DeBoer is not on a hot seat
after those 2 hypothetical years.
If they go 9-3,
yeah.
Now I think they're pretty good. I think they might be able to get to the SEC title game. I think Kalen DeBoer is a winner, and I like that Jalen Milroe's coming back, and the system with Kalen DeBoer seems to generate incredible quarterback play. My point is, it's one thing to be on the hot seat of the message boards and talking heads. It's another to actually be on it. Who are you? You tell me. You answer me this question. Because I'm not saying you're putting him on a hot seat. Who is Ohio State getting if they fire Ryan Day? That is recruiting at a top 3 level, number 1 in their conference.
Right.
Is got that kind of winning percentage. And the funny thing about them is a missed field goal separated them from beating Georgia
right
in a year that Georgia felt unbeatable and won the title 65-7.
Right.
So, like, who are you replacing Ryan Day with?
I don't.
We've had it. He can't beat Michigan. It's the one game a year he can't beat. We're firing him. Great. Who are you replacing him with?
See, and I don't know that there's a leading candidate right now.
Exactly.
There's just anger in the fact that you haven't beat your most hated rival and you haven't won a title.
Okay.
And a lot of his success, it's going to be, at least because his success early on, it's going to be given to Urban. They're going to say, those are Urban's guys. Urban laid the foundation. You were able to win. Now that it's your guys, it's different. You might be recruiting at a high level, but you're not developing them. And I don't know if there's like an instant you can go and grab this guy. They might try and stay, someone in the Buckeye family. They might go out and, I don't know, try and poach Norvell or see if they can't get someone else to come over there. Maybe a big name guy pops up in the next year or so that they want to go out and try and grab. But I do think that there is legitimate anger, and he should be worried about not being the head coach of Ohio State if they lose to Michigan, especially this year.
How many titles did Urban win?
He only had the one.
He was there 7 seasons.
But he won.
Okay. And Ryan Day might win this year. They are loaded. Like, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. It might be Will Howard. They might go, I forget the other kid's name, but like they'll figure that quarterback thing out, I think.
Right.
They got a head coach to leave his Big Ten job to be the offensive coordinator. They got all these guys on defense to come back. Egbuka comes back. He could have gone to the NFL. He didn't. Trayvon Henderson could have gone to the NFL. He didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They've shored up their offensive line questions or concerns. He's going into year 6. Urban was 7 years there, won 1 title. So, like, I get it. He hasn't won it yet. I think the whole thing is laughable. However, what you talk about, it might be true because he talked about expectation at Ohio State and kind of just having to deal with it.
Well, I think anytime you're at Ohio State, we know you're going to have expectations, but there's always going to be chatter. There's always going to be noise, and it's our job to block all those things out and just focus on what really matters. And I think, especially this time of year, the easy thing to do is focus on the goals, focus on the end of the season. But that's really is a waste of time if we don't build the foundation right now. Now, our guys, they know what the expectation is. You've heard some of them say, what their goals are. We're not going to shy away from that. We want to win the rivalry game, be right in this stadium right here, win this Big Ten championship, win a national championship. We know that. But at the same time, like, that can't be our focus because that's a distraction from where we are right now. And so where this season goes and what this team looks like is going to look a lot different than it did last year. And this is a new journey. We got to rebuild that to get to where we need to be. And that started last winter, but the next step is now in preseason. And so, we know what the expectation is. Every time, I've, gone into a season at Ohio State, I guess this is going to be my 8th season now. 6 is the head coach. You expect to win every game. That's just what it is. And if you don't think that's the case, try losing a game at Ohio State. I mean, you're expected to win them all. So that's not new. We embrace it in recruiting, and we want to make sure that those type of people are in our program.
Yeah, there are expectations at Ohio State. 11-2, 11-2, 11-2, 7-1, 13-1. And as he mentioned, he took over for Urban at the end of that year and went 3-0 in that final year for Urban Meyer. They won the Rose Bowl. So, yeah, unfortunately hasn't won the championship. And so it's like, are we really putting him on a hot seat, or is this the internet and the media talking? Ross Bjork's the new AD. AD's getting to places they want to make their hire, right? I don't know who you replace him with. Is it Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, maybe if
Sarkisian's not leaving Texas for Ohio State.
I think you could maybe
Lanning's
poach
not leaving
Norvell.
Oregon for Ohio State.
Norvell. I think you could poach Norvell.
Okay, what's Florida State this year? They didn't make the playoff last year.
They were good though, and he has turned.
So was
that
Ohio
team
State.
around. I'm not out here. You're taking the more rational approach,
right?
And I tend to agree with you.
I think I'm taking the most realistic one, but the noise is that like he might get fired this year, and like, look, if you lose 2-3 games, yeah, then we're in a different territory. I'm talking, it's the one game, and it's bothering people, and so like, what are they going to replace him with? I think they're going to beat Michigan this year, personally. They almost did last year, and they weren't even a good passing team.
They should beat Michigan this year. This Michigan team isn't as good.
It's a slightly rebuilding Michigan team with some experience, but yes,
Right.
I largely agree with you. If they're healthy,
head coach.
yes,
Mhm.
I agree with you. I just think we conjure up things that aren't real all the time.
Well, I also think some of it, too, from Ohio State fan is, they went close to 20 years there where they didn't lose to Michigan or they lost once. And then you have this run where you lose 3 years in a row. When you have so much sustained success that instead of it being a rivalry, it really turns into a big brother, little brother type deal.
Yeah.
That when little brother finally beats you, then you have this big freak out and you have to do all these big changes. Now, I personally, if he was, the coach at Oregon and
Or
like
fill in the
Lanning
blanks,
had that
yeah.
record, you fill in the blank of any normal college football program, I think he's fine.
Well,
Like,
what's
who
fun-
would be calling for his head?
Well, what's funny is like the experience is much greater, right? The years he's been there. Ryan Day's lost 3 in a row to Michigan, and everybody's like, yo, we might need to fire this guy. You're not hearing a word. Lanning's lost 3 in a row to UW.
Yeah.
He lost 2 twice
And they
in
were
a year.
close. And they were
Yeah,
right there.
and I'm
but
not saying fire
right.
Lanning. I'm saying like it's just funny. Like everybody's got expectations. Ohio State's are clearly like, let's go win a natty. That's their
Right.
own expectations. Ryan Day's. It's just funny how like 2 things are happening, and one's like we might have to fire this guy, and the other's like it's not even a thought.
No, you're ecstatic that you were able to keep
Right.
him and not have
Right.
him go somewhere else.
Not go to Bama. Yes, exactly.
And it's a similar.
It's a funny sport that way, man. Fan bases are absolutely rabid and insane, which makes me love it.
Right.
Also, sometimes they're incredibly stupid, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. It's a case of the supposed do's versus like
Yes.
we're really excited to be in this position. That's the difference.
We've got Steve Hellwagon's going to join us coming up. Let's see. Swag just texted me. He's going to be over at 9, 10 a.m., so we'll just have a late 9 o'clock segment. That's going to go long. He'll join us. We'll get some NFL dealings as well. Dirt and Sprague back with more on The Fan.
Thanks to our fan listeners and Autotown GMC for making the 10th annual Fan Golf Classic at
We will talk with Steve Hellwagon of bucknuts.com. We'll ask him this hot seat question, this narrative that is formed about Ryan Day's 56-8. Kirk Ferentz is on the podium right now talking Big Ten football, Iowa Hawkeyes, who I saw Greg McElroy say he thinks they could be a sleeper playoff team. Not contend, just be a sleeper playoff team.
Well, what? If before the Big Ten championship last year, they had 2 losses?
Punts. Yes. UW goes to Iowa. That'll be a fun game. We'll talk with Steve Hellwagon, and then right after Steve Hellwagon, we talk with our good buddy Josh Pate of Late Kick with Josh Pate on 24/7 CBS Sports. He is live there conducting business and doing the media round, so he'll join us at 9:30 coming up. Let's get to some NFL stuff very quickly here. Some NFL dealings, Will. Brandon Ayuk is scheduled to show up to fall camp, training camp, and CeeDee Lamb is not. 2 guys looking to get paid. One's taking the approach of, okay, I'll be there. The other one saying, not sure.
I honestly would rather, if I'm Ayuk, why don't you go the way of CeeDee Lamb? I know it's contentious. You've demanded your trade. You want all those things to happen. Maybe you can't afford to be fined.
You don't get fined, and maybe John Lynch has put it in his ear, we're going to get this figured out.
We'll get it taken care of.
Yeah.
Because, what if, every year someone has a non-contact injury? What if it is you?
Well, that could be the scenario every year, whether you got the deal or no deal.
I know, but that's why you would sit out until you made sure you got your deal.
Did you see that Shanahan reportedly offered Belichick any job he wanted to do to be a part of the staff? And Belichick politely turned it down because, he's probably going to make more money not having to worry about the X's and the O's and the stress. And
got to take his girlfriend to cheer practice.
Well, he's also got to take her to school, drop her off, pick her up, get her a snack.
She's a psychology major. She's younger than me.
I tell you right now, if I was the father, if my daughter brings home somebody 20 years older than me, that's my threshold. That's my point of, I don't know how I'm reacting, but it ain't positive. I got a problem.
When your daughter brings home someone that's older than you?
Yeah, that's what's happening. Her dad's 50-something. This dude is 70.
70. There's a 50-year
She's 20-something.
He could be her grandfather.
Technically speaking, yes, that is correct. I would have a problem.
Good for Bill.
Yeah, people say that. I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that either. That's weird both ways. But Bill is living his best Bill life. Shanahan offering him anything. Hey, do anything you want. Please be on the staff. I love that he made that offer, but I think as a Niner fan, a little bummed that Bill didn't take it. Because, their defense has been part of the problem in the Super Bowl with Mahomes and company, not getting those pivotal stops. It'd be nice to have a Belichick on the sideline saying, hey, this is actually what I saw on the film.
Right. Well, I think it's showing the true loss of DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans had that defense humming when he was the DC, and then
so did Rob Saleh. Rob Saleh did a really good job as well.
Well, and sometimes you can go from one DC that's really good to another DC that's really, and I'm not saying that your DC right now isn't as good, but there's clearly some sort of coverage issue.
Well, they just fired the guy, and then they hired a new one.
Right. And so that kind of seems like a little turmoil. But that being said, Fred Warner, he's going to hide a lot of issues. When you have a guy that can cover like that, but also play in the box, you're going to have someone that hides a lot of your mistakes.
He's an absolute stud, but I totally got why Shanahan made the move he did. I'm watching that last Chiefs drive, and I'm like, cool, we're playing defense where we say, hey, here's 10 yards, Chiefs, take it.
Well, remember, you're starting Will linebacker tore his Achilles, jumping up, getting ready to run out onto the field.
After having a nice little start to the game, too.
And you were shutting
Dre
them
Greenlaw
down.
was an underrated. Yeah, and look, I'm not saying Dre Greenlaw plays, they win the game. He is a massively underrated part of what they are. He brings an edge, he brings a little FU, and he's a really good player. That was a huge blow in the game for them to have to deal with as he just went back out onto the field. I don't know why. Well, I do. Joe Burrow shaving his head and dyeing it blonde became a big story.
Yeah, welcome to July, end of July. We need a story, and someone looks like Eminem, so we have to talk about it. Has he gone crazy? Is it for fashion?
Well, first of all, a lot of athletes do this. I saw some Argentina players doing it at the Copas. I have a thing to admit to you. Now, I hate saying this because it's going to look not legitimate if it happens. I had talked in February about shaving my head for hood to coast and dyeing it blonde.
Nice.
And now if I do it, I'm going to look like somebody copying Joe Burrow, but with a midlife crisis.
Yeah, you can't do it. That's the problem. Like, once Joe did it, you got to wait at least 2 years because then people will forget about it.
Well, but also, like, we're still at a point where the dyed blonde hair on white guy thing is still Eminem. And I was thinking about that on my run yesterday of, is there going to be a point where you and I see that and we think Eminem, but, like, the new generation says, oh, who are you, so-and-so?
Oh,
like,
this is like a mellow thing. Like,
Yeah, a little
mellow
bit.
to my little cousin is LaMelo Ball.
That pisses
Mellow
me
to
off.
us is Carmelo.
He should just be La, because he hasn't earned the mellow part of that. He doesn't play. But yeah, like when does it not become Eminem when a guy shaves his head and dyes it
I don't know that anyone will ever copy that look. Like,
because Eminem doesn't even shave his head and dye it blonde. He's like regular hair guy now.
Right, but think about it, like, the Rachel haircut is still Jennifer Aniston from Friends. Like, I think he has just gotten to the point where that's what that cut is. Like, in my generation, the moppy hair where you comb it over.
Justin Bieber.
That's the Bieber
That's
cut.
the Bieber,
That's
yeah.
the Bieber look.
Yep.
I don't know that anyone will take over that look because everyone had that same hairstyle back then, but it's the Bieber haircut. Are there, like, is the next generation going to come up and be like, look at our new Josh Richards haircut, or, insert TikTok star here.
Tua can't get a contract. Amari Cooper signs an extension that works out kind of for both sides. And yesterday's big news is Joe Burrow shaved his head and dyed it blonde. I'm like, cool. All right. What's that say about the Bengals futures? I don't know. Steve Hellwagon covers Ohio State. We talked about them. He'll join us coming up in the 9 a.m. segment. I think. I'm talking to Swag. I'm trying to get communication here with Swag. Break, no break, what we do, because Pate's going to join us at 9:30. So we have a lot more to get to coming up. Dirt and Sprague, final hour. Yes, we go to 10 a.m. today. Coming up next on The Fan. This is the final hour. We are going till 10 a.m. Jonathan Smith is on the podium now. A little nervous, I would say, is how I would describe his opening remarks. Had to look down a lot. Almost forgot Iowa's head coach's name, Kirk Ferentz. But says he's excited to be in the Big Ten. He just took a question on Aiden Childs transferring over and how good he can be, which obviously we all know that he's pretty pumped to have Aiden Childs follow him from Oregon State to East Lansing. People are asking him questions now, so I don't know if anything will come of that. We already talked with Jack Velling, who was there, his tight end, formerly of Oregon State, as Aiden Childs and Tanner Miller followed him along with the coaching staff. And Jack had some interesting thoughts. Basically loves Oregon State, but the opportunity presented itself, and even asked him about some goodwill stuff. So dropping his clothes off. You want to catch that interview, you can at 1080thefan.com. This final hour is probably going to whiz right by. We're going to talk with Steve Hellwagon. He covers Ohio State. They talked yesterday, so yesterday was Buckeye Day. We'll talk with him at 9:15. Immediately after him, we'll break. We'll come back. We got Josh Pate, who's going to join us from Late Kick with Josh Pate, 24/7 in CBS Sports. We'll get his thoughts on everything. We've talked with Heather Denich, Miller Moss, Jeff Schwarz. We've just been flexible and moving around. There's a lot that we're going to put up at 1080thefan.com. We touched base with Swag as well. He's not sure if he's going to go to St. Elmo, which would be a real shame to not get the shrimp cocktail and maybe a ribeye steak.
You gotta go.
Hey, I gotta experience it.
This is like going to New York and not getting a New York style pizza.
Well, those are like literally on every corner. It'd be impossible, but like, yeah, it'd be like going
You gotta
deep
go.
dish in Chicago or
Yeah.
you know, a Detroit style in Detroit or whatever. Wings in Buffalo. Like, it's cliche, it's touristy, but like it's also supposed to be really good. You're right across the street. Go enjoy it.
Right. Even if it's a solo trip, get a podcast, put it in your ear, and just go enjoy the shrimp cocktail. Shell out for the nice steak. Enjoy it.
You should enjoy it before all the animals are on cocaine. Did you see the report out of Brazil that sharks now have cocaine in their system?
Did they meet Pablo Escobar? Like, what's happening?
We
What are
ha-
there's a shark, Pablo Escobar? What's happening?
We had cocaine bear.
Yeah.
Well, now we got cocaine shark, according to multiple reports that sharks now are being found in Brazil to have cocaine in their system.
I feel like that should have happened before Cocaine Bear. Like, they had to fly.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
didn't they transport it from, like, Cuba or Venezuela? It had to fly over water? Stuff
I think
happened?
they've transported however they could possibly transport it. So boat probably included in that.
Right.
But yeah.
That could spill. Boats spill all the time.
Somebody is going to make a movie in the next 5 years with sharks and coke in their system. They've already made one with bears. Why would they not do it with sharks?
They should do it with a Sharknado as well.
Sharknado on cocaine. Boy, that's a thing to see.
That'd be terrifying. That's my worst nightmare. I might never sleep again.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't blame you. Yeah, shelter may not matter at that point. They just eat right through it.
What's your number one fear? Sharks on cocaine and a Sharknado. I don't think I'll ever survive.
How many Sharknadoes they end up making?
7 or 8. I watched the first
Did
two.
they? Oh yeah, I watched the first one. I don't think it wasn't like I sat down and watched it. I like accidentally watched it, and then everybody caught on to it.
I recorded it.
You recorded it?
I did check it out. I was in middle school and everyone's talking about Sharknado, and then you look up the poster and it's like Tara Reid and some other hot. It's like, I gotta check it out.
Yeah, American Pie superstar Tara Reid.
Yeah, I didn't even know of American Pie at that point.
Well, you don't even know if you were alive, to be quite honest.
No,
with
but Sharknado came out like freshman year of high school.
Yeah, that tracks.
I think around there.
I remember
for
us
me.
talking about it on the show like years ago, Dirt and I.
Yeah, it was like around 2012-ish. So yeah, that would have been around like I am aware that there's an American Pie series, but I probably haven't seen the original.
Yeah. Well, we'll go from Sharknado to Steve Hellwagon of Bucknuts because that's just the natural order of things here, right? If you're not going to get hit by a Sharknado, you got to watch out for Bucknuts. They go crazy over there in Columbus.
They're everywhere. I'm shocked they didn't throw them at the Duck.
Well, Steve's a good friend of the show. We've had him on several times. We're probably going to have him on the week Oregon plays Ohio State because, like, that's going to be the game of games. Go look at the schedule, but I'm pretty sure that's the biggest game, and I'm not sure how close it is. But, yeah, Steve, I'd be curious to pick his brain. Ryan Day's media session was yesterday. We talked earlier about hot seat business. If it's real, is it manufactured? Is it just message board fodder? He hasn't beaten Michigan in 3 straight years. Ohio State's coming in maybe the best team in college football. I'm just going to continue to reiterate. It is so weird to see Jonathan at Michigan State. It's just doesn't feel right. But we'll see. He's a good coach. Say what you want about him. He's a damn good football coach. He's just not going to recruit an elite level. But it's kind of one of those things that, like, hey, year one, maybe go 6-6. Makes people feel a little bit better about the direction of that program.
Well, and he's also the perfect fit for Michigan State. They are the little brother. They're the little brother's little brother, really. And
wow,
you can build a winner, though, right?
Wait, are you saying Michigan's Ohio State's little brother?
I mean, they were until the last 3 years.
What's that all-time rivalry at?
I thought Ohio State had taken over.
I'm just kind of curious.
I would assume when you go basically 20-0 for 20
Michigan
years.
is 61-51-6 against Ohio State. I think you labeled that.
Well, you know what? Hand up. I apologize.
That's okay.
I was wrong.
We make mistakes
You're
all the time.
You're the little brother.
Yeah, there you go.
You're back to just the little brother.
But he's the little brother of the big brother in the state that the big brother doesn't concern himself with because the other little brother is in a different state.
It's a whole thing.
He's the third child, not the middle child.
That's the better.
That's the better.
He's the third child.
Yep.
And there's a 10-year age gap.
I think we nailed it. Yeah. Let's go to Steve Hellwagon. Josh Pate will join us. Steve Hellwagon, bucknuts.com, joins us from Big Ten Media Day next on The Fan.
Everyone.
Been covering Ohio State a long time.
Long time,
Steve. We love having you on, man.
30th year. This is my 30th year starting full time, and 30th time I've been at the Big Ten preseason meetings. So
it's great to have you. What motivated it wasn't that I hadn't thought of you. It just yesterday you got to ask one of the couple questions to Petiti, and I loved that you asked him a Michigan, like, hey, Michigan, anything going to happen from that whole, big cheating thing? I love that you were able to ask that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't doing it as much to troll Michigan as much that I thought, again, this is a guy who was in his first year as the commissioner of the Big Ten. You have all this upheaval with 4 new schools onboarding the following year and everything else that's going on in the world. And out of nowhere at midseason, these allegations start popping up about Michigan sending people into the stadiums of their future opponents so that they can basically videotape or capture what the sideline signals look like, take that back to campus, decode it, because this guy had a military intelligence background of all things. How comical was the whole thing? I mean, you think about it, you just sit there and you laugh. They're doing a Netflix documentary on the guy, Connor Stallions. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this was Tony Petitti in his first year. He's got 13 schools calling him saying, you got to throw the book at these people. They've cheated us, for a year, 2 years, whatever it's been. And he was put, as I termed it, a very untenable position, but he handled it, I thought, pretty well. And they still got a chance to play for the Big Ten championship. They won that, made the playoff, obviously won those 2 games and won the national championship. And now we wait for the other shoe to fall from the NCAA.
I was very uncomfortable knowing that we all knew they cheated and they just nothing like, hey, go ahead, go play, go win the whole thing. Like, hey, this is usually a big deal, but all right, we'll move on. Ohio State, Steve, is loaded, as you know. They are the consensus number 1 in the Big Ten, almost consensus. Oregon got a couple votes, but largely considered the favorite in the Big Ten, and right there with Georgia as maybe the best team, if not the best team in the sport. All the additions they add, plus the guys that are returning. We talked earlier, and we've talked about this a couple times. You're in Columbus. You cover this program. You know what the message boards say. This guy's 56-8, and we act like he's some bum coach because he has lost to Michigan, and I get that's a big deal to you guys, a great deal. Is he really on a hot seat? Like, if we're being honest here, is there a real hot seat, or is this a media fan narrative?
I don't think it's a real hot seat. He's getting a new athletic director. Ross Bjork just arrived from Texas A&M. A new college president, Ted Carter, just came in from Nebraska. So those 2 guys have a ton of expertise in managing expectations and what is expected at a football school. And certainly that is Ohio State, number 1 right off the ship. So I look at it that he's got a long-term contract for a lot of money. He is recruiting at an extremely high level. They have the number 1 class on paper right now for 2025, and he's setting them up for success for years to come. I don't think that, I don't envision them losing to Michigan this year with all these guys coming back, the game being played in Columbus, Michigan only having 4 returning starters and a new coach. It just sets up so well for Ohio State to at least win that game. But does that mean that they're going to go out to Oregon and win? We don't know that. And does that mean they're going to go on and win the Big Ten championship? We don't know that either. So I think that they're positioned well. I don't look at it that he's on a hot seat, but as he says, try losing a game or 2 and see what the response is from the natives. They get a little restless there in Columbus, and 3 straight 11-2 seasons, 3 straight losses to Michigan, no Big Ten championships for a few years. So, I think Ohio State fans are ready to take the next step again.
I'd love to put a Buckeye fan that puts him on the hot seat and say, who you hiring? And then see them go, Steve Hellwagon's our guest here, bucknuts.com, 24/7 sports. Who's the quarterback? I thought done deal easy. Maybe it is just Will Howard, but it feels like there was a little noise about that. Is it Will Howard, or is there a competition brewing?
Well, I think the preseason camp starts next week, August 1st, and he'll be the number 1, I think, starting out. But it'll be a competition. And Coach Day said they're good. They've got 5 scholarship quarterbacks. They're going to whittle it down to 3 guys getting reps for the middle 2 weeks, and that's where the competition will lie. And I think about 2 weeks before the opener against Akron, that's when the coach will probably come out and make a announcement that it'll probably be Will Howard, the transfer from Kansas State. I don't know how you turn him down. He's got 2 years of starting experience. He won a Big 12 championship, beat the undefeated TCU team 2 years ago, and he can run the ball, whereas the last one of the last few quarterbacks they had there, McCord and Stroud, the 2 guys before him, really did not want to run the football much. Fields was a willing runner before them, but that's what may be missing perhaps from the offense. The offense kind of took a little bit of a step back last year with McCord, and the offensive line wasn't quite as good either.
Yeah, what do you expect to see differently with Chip Kelly at the helm?
That's a great question. I talked to a UCLA reporter, and he said he did great things at UCLA with his offense, very imaginative, imaginative, and was doing it with 3- and 4-star players. He says, I'm going to make appointment viewing to watch Ohio State to see what he does with 4- and 5-star players. So, I guess that's the anticipation, is that, he comes in with all of this excitement around him, that he walked away from the head coaching job at UCLA, a special friendship and kinship with Ryan Day. Ryan Day played college football for Chip Kelly at New Hampshire. They worked together at a couple of NFL stops as well. And Ryan Day said yesterday he would trust Chip Kelly with his life. So giving him the tools to call the offensive plays is really not that big of a deal, I guess, for Ryan Day, who can now be more of the program manager. And, it is a full-time job now with this NIL and the transfer portal, and dealing with, perhaps even dealing with player agents at times as well. Believe it or not, at the college level, there's all these other things that go into it. He can help out on defense, and he can also help out on special teams as well, Ryan Day. So I think it's going to be the best of both worlds for all concerned.
Yeah, college programs are hiring positions they're calling GMs now. So,
Yep.
it's a different world we're living in. We're talking with Steve Hellwagon of BuckNuts.com, covers Ohio State. Their day was yesterday. I would say largely it was Ohio State and kind of everybody else. No disrespect to Illinois or Rutgers or Purdue. It just is kind of a lame duck group. And then, there's Ohio State. It's the pick preseason to win the conference. However, there was another team that it wasn't their day, and they kind of became just as much a storyline because they put a big-ass floating duck in the river outside of Indianapolis' stadium where this is all being held. We go into this weary that this conference realignment is going to kill pageantry and rivalry, and maybe it develops over the years. But I'm wondering today, and I was wondering this yesterday, Steve, we haven't played a conference game between Ohio State and Oregon. It feels like there may already be animosity because Oregon's picked second. Many think they can win the conference in year one. They're recruiting at a high level. They're right behind Ohio State in that regard. They're taking over, media days that they're not even a part of. Is there already kind of this natural hatred built towards Oregon without even having a conference game happen yet?
Yeah, I think that there is, I don't know about animosity, but it is certainly spicing up, because these two schools are going head-to-head for a lot of top athletes and recruits, and you're seeing Oregon, beat out Ohio State for different players, and, it could be NIL related. Ryan Day talked about how, NIL's built in and around Columbus with the fans of the program. He shared a story how Ohio State used fan money 101 years ago to build Ohio Stadium. And now, all this a century later, they're using fan and private money to help pay for players, and much the same thing that Oregon's doing. So, we're not privy to all the ins and outs of the exact dollar figures and different things like this, but it is a competitive marketplace, and these two schools are going after the creme de la creme, the best of the best. And there are going to be some feelings hurt at times over these type things. And certainly, Oregon doesn't have to prove to me that they're legitimate. They came into Ohio State 3 years ago and handed Ohio State their helmet. So, they blistered them. So if Ohio State doesn't have their ducks in a row, for lack of a better term, and go into Eugene ready for a battle, they're going to get it handed to them again.
Yeah.
Because and here's the thing. I'm 56 years old. I grew up, watching Woody and Bo when I was a little kid, in the 70s, and Ohio State and the Big Ten. And they added Penn State, and that seemed natural since it was a contiguous state. Then they add Maryland and Nebraska and Rutgers, and you're kind of like, okay, whatever. Nebraska at least has some cachet. Well, now you're going 3 time zones away. And it just, to me, I'm not necessarily excited about it. On one hand, I know the games are going to be great on the days that they're played, but it feels like, kind of like when Texas and Texas A&M stopped playing and Nebraska and Oklahoma stopped playing and all these things, that, you're losing part of the identity of the sport. But I don't know. Ohio State's going to play Indiana and Illinois less, and UCLA and USC and Washington and Oregon more. So I guess that's a good thing.
There's some belief that maybe this is Oregon's most loaded team on paper, just from a talent standpoint. Ohio State's had so many great teams that have won titles. Where does this one rank for you in terms of just all of these guys? And you wrote some really good pieces. You know, you got Burke and Sawyer and Henderson. You got Buka, who's there as well. You got players that could have very well left. Coming back, they all talked about how this is important to leave on the right note for Ohio State. Where does this one rank just on paper of most loaded Buckeye teams?
Yeah, it's up there. I'd put it in the top 5 or top 10. And as I said, I go back full-time 30 years. I consider that from about the mid-'90s on, the modern era now of college football. It was a little bit different game prior, in the late 80s. It was just a much different, game. Ohio State lined up in the I formation and ran play action pass off of that. It was really very rudimentary the way that they attacked people. And I think starting in the 90s, you saw some new ideas that really started to take hold. And what Purdue did, with its spread offense and Joe Tiller, there in the late 90s and early 2000s, people started, latching on to that as a way to attack defenses. And so, I would put it up there. They've had some great teams in the past that were full of NFL players, national championship teams in 2002 and 2014. Their 2015 team came back from that championship and didn't make it to the championship game or the playoff the following year. But that was an outstanding team with Bosa and Elliott and Michael Thomas and so many guys, that went on to play years and years and years in the NFL. So they're up there. I think what's interesting, you had 10 or 12 guys who could have gone and gotten drafted in the NFL draft. Maybe a couple of them could have snuck into the first round. I don't know that any true surefire first rounder, maybe JT Tuimoloau, late first rounder from up there in Seattle, maybe he would have been a first rounder, but most of them would have been second, third round picks. But they did make the decision to come back and chase the championship. And at Ohio State, they give out a little pendant of gold pants for guys who beat on a team that beats Michigan. None of these guys have a pendant, of gold pants. I mean, the fifth-year guys do, but nobody that's played the last 3 years does. So, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out this year.
Well, we're looking forward to having Steve Hellwagon, former conference, other conference member. Now he's a conference foe here as they get ready with Oregon, Washington, and the LA schools joining us live in Indianapolis. Very quickly, Steve, because we appreciate the time. Just who is the program outside of the obvious, the Penn State, Michigan, Ohio States, in the Big Ten, the traditional Big Tens, the most underrated fan base that we will discover in following this conference more regularly now?
Nebraska has more support than probably 10 teams put together.
Yep.
For them to continue to impact that stadium with as terrible as the football has been at Nebraska for the last decade, I think that is a tribute to their fan base. Iowa has a great fan base as well, and they've had good teams, just haven't had any good offenses in recent years. And now they've hired Tim Lester as their offensive coordinator. If they put a few points on the board, my goodness. I mean, they made the championship game here, last year, I suppose, and didn't, couldn't score a touchdown. So that'll tell you how good the football there can be. But those two in particular, Wisconsin, don't get caught after dark up in Wisconsin. That jump around will get you. So there's some magical places in this league, and then there are some that are destined to play the noon game on Big Ten Network for in perpetuity. So there you go.
Yeah,
or better yet, in complete anonymity on Peacock.
Well, we threw you one of those from L.A., and they wear baby blue. There we go. Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts.
Yeah, 44,000 people at the rolling around the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, they'll say it's that number. It ain't. It's more like 4. There we go. Good stuff. Steve Hellwagon. Steve, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you down the road.
Yep, take care.
All right, there we go. Steve Hellwagon of Bucknuts.com. From Steve Hellwagon to Josh Pate, the commissioner of college football, joins us live from Indy next.
This is a Big Ten
Indianapolis, we just talked with Steve Hellwagon of bucknuts.com, who does an exceptional job. Back to Indy because Swag has grabbed the commissioner. No, not Tony Petitti, though many would call him that. This is the college football commissioner, the one that wants the job the most. Late Kick with Josh Pate, our good friend Josh Pate of Late Kick Live. He's got a late edition today is what he teased on his Twitter account, CBS Sports HQ on Twitter, at Late Kick Josh. We have a lot of football to talk about here, Commish, but I need an honest God's hand-to-God review. Twisters. Where are we at on Twisters?
All right, so I send out chalices of supremacy, chali of supremacy. I also rate movies on a sliding chali scale. For the listeners who are unwashed, if you put an I on the end of anything, it makes it plural. So we call a plural of chalice, chali. I gave it 4 out of 5 chali. So let me get the small beefs out of the way. There was not enough overlap with the first movie. There were hardly any callbacks. If you watched this movie, you never would know there was an original Twister. Not a bad thing, just a thing. The score of the movie I didn't like. I felt like it was plucked from a random action movie and dropped into Twister. The soundtrack's good. I hope you like country, otherwise you'll disagree with me. But the soundtrack's good. But here's what's most important. Okay, the vibe, they nailed it again. What it's like storm chasing, they totally nailed it. And again, for those unfamiliar, I do this stuff multiple times per year, so I know exactly, at least in this compartment, what I'm talking about. I don't speak authoritatively on much, but on this I can speak authoritatively. They also did not hijack the movie. The other concern we had in the storm chasing community was they were going to Hollywood hijack it, double H as we call it, and that is take something you love and say, this isn't good enough. It wouldn't be entertaining. Let's put our spin on it. Well, they did that like 10%, which is anything Hollywood touches. But by and large, they left it alone. There were no like weird agendas pushed in the movie. They didn't make it a romance movie that involves tornadoes, which is what some people worried they would do. It's not some shrine to Glenn Powell or anything like that. Everything fits. Everyone fits. 4 out of 5, Chali. Go see it.
I need to go see it. My little brother and I used to watch that movie religiously over and over again. Love Bill Paxton, love Helen Hunt. I know it may be the most ridiculous part of that original as a storm chaser yourself. Do they have any moment where Glenn Powell is as badass as when Bill Paxton has the dirt in his hand and he just says, let's roll? Because he can just feel it. He knows it. He can call it. And it's ridiculous, but do they have a little bit of that at all?
Yeah, so here's what's crazy. Oklahoma, as you know, is a fairly big state.
Yes.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. So there's a lot of middle of nowhere in Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma. We were out there in a very small, like, map dot town called Fairview 3 or 4 months ago chasing. And we had a tornado-warned cell, and we were chasing it out there. Okay, so we used this intersection, this little 3-way intersection in the middle of nowhere in Fairview for our staging area. Then fast forward 3 months, and I'm watching Twisters, and sure enough, the first scene, this is not a spoiler, but the first scene where all the chase teams converge on each other is right there at that place we had staged. And when I tell you this is middle of nowhere, it is 200 miles from the nearest city of any size. And so Glenn Powell pulls in there, cowboy hat on, and just screams, you don't face your fears, you ride them. There is a crowd around him. He said, hey, if you feel it, chase it. So, yes, that was the dirt drop moment in this new one.
That's awesome. Josh Pate is our guest here, the commissioner of college football. He's been traveling from media day to media day. He is in Indianapolis for Big Ten Media Day. We just talked with Ohio State, Steve Hellwagon. We've talked to many guests today. Oregon's day is tomorrow, and yet they hijacked day one with a floating duck. What have we made of the new additions to the Big Ten this year and how it's all going over for other people that have been in the Big Ten?
Yeah, you want to be the person in the marketing department that makes every other person competitively in your field go, why didn't we think of that? You want to make their bosses come to them and say, why didn't we think of that? And you could have had a floating anything. You could have had a floating corn cob in that river today if you're Nebraska, but no one else thought about it. It feels a little weird. I mean, I walked in the building 20 minutes ago. Lincoln Riley was on the stage. And they were asking him barbecue questions, which is the bane of his existence. And then they were asking him about his defense and how they couldn't stop molasses in December last year, as Meemaw would say. And then you juxtapose that to, we were talking to, Greg Schiano yesterday, and it's the most buttoned up, roll up your sleeves, lunch pail, go to work, smash mouth style of ball you can play. And to think that all of that exists in the same conference now. And then you throw Oregon in there as well. The difference with Oregon, and I know this has been a talking point, but it really will start to ramp up when they start playing football, is a lot of these folks in this conference are going to understand that Oregon's built to play Big Ten football a little bit more than they are built to play Big Ten football, because at line of scrimmage, everyone, aside from Ohio State maybe, and Michigan, will be playing catch-up to Oregon in that department. That's not to even mention the edge they'll have in quarterback play, perimeter skill, talent, and that sort of thing. So Lanning comes in here tomorrow. I am very interested to watch how his profile grows. I think hardcore fans know about him. Like, no one needs to tell folks like us about Dan Lanning. I still think the casual college football fan, they know Nick Saban. They're probably just now finding out Saban retired. They know who Ryan Day is. They know Jim Harbaugh. Probably don't know that he left either. They know Kirby Smart. I think they know the name Dan Lanning, and I think they remember that soundbite when he was playing Colorado. That's the extent to which I think the casual college football public knows Lanning, and they're about to get to know him a lot better this year.
Yeah, he gave our good buddy Tyson Alger, who covers things out here in the Northwest, a great quote of Oregon in the NIL recruiting space and people saying, it's just Nike, it's money. And he basically said, well, the rabbit has the gun now, in response to Kirby Smart, which was a great quote. And I'm kind of with you. Aside from Gabriel, because he's the Heisman favorite, he's the offensive player of the year preseason in the Big Ten, is there a position group for you when you look at this Oregon group that you don't think is getting enough attention that may make the difference if they are to take that next step or win the Big Ten?
Yeah, but it's not a star-studded group. It's just the two deep on the defensive line. That group may be anonymous even on the West Coast. It may be anonymous even in the Big Ten. However, when I talk about that, I don't talk about it in individual terms. I talk about it in totality. Just the random quality of the second defensive end that they'll roll out in the middle of a game to get 12 snaps is much better than when he first got there. And he didn't inherit a poor man's roster. Mario left a lot of good talent up there. But the way that they have gone about just stacking and stacking and stacking and being totally relentless in recruiting defensive front talent, that's the difference. And it's almost like quarterback play. People talk about quarterback play all the time. And then folks who have to talk about the sport every day kind of try and find something else to talk about. They feel like they're talking about quarterback play too much. You can never talk about QB play too much. It's the most important thing in the game. Well, the second most important thing in the game is line of scrimmage talent and play at the line of scrimmage. And folks almost want to talk about anything other than that because they think it's boring or they think it's cliched to say you win games at the line of scrimmage. Well, I don't know, turn on your TV every Saturday and watch the proof get thrown in your face. So that's why I go back to what I just said a second ago. You'll watch Oregon. You may watch Oregon all season and get to December and not be able to name a single defensive lineman of theirs. But you'll know when you watch them, they've taken it to 10 or 11 other teams they played, maybe 12 other teams they played up front.
I think we both agree that UCLA is in a little bit of a rebuilding stage. Deshaun Foster coming in. They're trying to kind of revamp that. Chip leaves for the OC gig. USC, we talked to Miller Moss earlier this morning. He was really interesting to talk to. And UW, both new members coming in this year into the Big Ten. One was in the title game, and they lost a whole ton, but they get Jed Fish. They get Will Rogers. They got some running back stability. Like, they went to the portal, and they're trying to recruit and rebuild quickly. And Lincoln, as you know, Feinbaum, your guy down there, saying, like, I'd fire him and I hired Dion after telling us Dion hasn't done a good enough job. I'm curious what you think USC and Washington will be year one in the conference.
Look, when he said what he said the other day, I mean, there's a term they've used in the South for a long time, Feinbaum season, and there is a reason why that term exists. He knows what to do in July and August. He understands there is a bridge that you have to build between July 4th and the start of fall camp, and that's how you do it. So I texted him the other day some choice emojis to express my sentiment on that front. Look, so that entire, to go back to the teams you just mentioned, there's this interesting thing happening with Missouri and the SEC that I think correlates to Washington. So once you have a big year, and in Washington's case, they played for it all. At Missouri's case, they had a double-digit win season. I don't know what it is. There's a mechanism that triggers in people's minds that all of a sudden those become reload instead of rebuild programs. Well, those are not reload programs. Reload programs recruit top 5-ish every year, and they portal that way every year. If you don't do that, which is 99% of the sport, and you have the kind of churn that Washington's had, you will take a step back even in the best of cases. There is nothing about that statement that casts an ounce of doubt on the ability of Jed Fish. Not an ounce of it. I'm saying if he's everything you think he is, then you're going to take a step back this year. I mean, do you think Sonny Dykes became a worse coach because TCU went to a title game and then was barely 500 the next year? The guy was the same coach. It's just you got to it's not as simple as the old version of the video game made it out to be. Now, I'm told the new version does make it pretty tough to win, so maybe folks do need to hop on the Xbox or the PlayStation now to get a more real sense. But they'll take a step back. I was listening to Jet talk the other day. It sounded like he's trying to condition the folks up there as much as they can to understand, this is going to work, but it's not going to work win-loss column-wise overnight.
Yeah, no, it certainly won't. The commissioner of college football, Josh Pate, Late Kick with Josh might be an extra late edition. He is in Indianapolis for the Big Ten Media Days. Catch a show Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. A very old, good friend of the show. It's good to catch up with you, man. Enjoy the media days, and hopefully we catch up with you down the road.
I appreciate it, brother. We're almost there. We're almost there. To quote Helen Hunt in Twister, we're almost there.
We are almost there. There we go. Josh Pate of Late Kick with Josh Pate on CBS Sports and 24/7. A Big Ten Media Day next on The Fan. Jason T. Swigard, the Tyrannosaurus Rex that he is, our thanks to Will Ortner. They are doing a lot more work than you even know. Will's been using like 9 things all day. It's been wild. It is unpredictable. Big Ten Media Day is crazier than anything we've ever experienced, I think, as a station. So Swag's done an exceptional job doing what he can do and wrangling who he can wrangle. Will, you're killing it as well. I'm just going to say this because I think tomorrow, Swag, you're on with me. Do you fly back after tomorrow's dealings, or do you fly back Friday?
No, I fly back tomorrow. I might have to duck out just a hair early. I'm supposed to land around 11:45 p.m.
Okay, all right. Well,
I'm sleeping as much Friday. I'm sorry. I know you wanted a day off, my man, but there was no way. And that's assuming my flight connects. You can't fly direct, as Josh mentioned to me, out of Indianapolis anywhere. So that's assuming my connection in Phoenix doesn't get fouled up.
Did you just tell me I don't have a day off on Friday?
Yeah. I thought the boss, unless you work something out, he asked me what I was doing, and I already had told him.
Didn't he know you were flying in at 11 o'clock at night?
He did know.
And he still was asking what you were doing?
Yeah.
Hey, I know you're getting in around midnight. Won't be in bed by almost 1, but interested.
The biggest concern is my connection was so tight getting out here, and that was the plane landing in L.A. 15 minutes early.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it's
So you don't want to sleep with Kim Jong-un on the couch?
Yeah, how dare you not come in from the airport?
No, I need to hit my bed.
That's okay. I may get it all figured out at the end, but it's okay. So I'll say this to you then, since you're leaving tomorrow. This is your last night.
Yes.
I really, there's not an excuse you could give me to not have a St. Elmo's thing to turn into our accounting department.
Yeah, I might need to go by for at least a cocktail and a shrimp cocktail. I might have to
at the
do that
minimum
at the bar.
Get the shrimp cocktail, man.
So, like I said, I have executive producer duties with our friends at the Oregon Broadcasting Network and Learfield, who are trying to figure out how to get things set up as they start broadcasting on Monday with some of their programming. So,
well, today was Michigan State, USC. Franklin is on the stage now, the main podium. Tomorrow is going to be Oregon, Washington are kind of the main teams for tomorrow as well.
Yeah, we have a tentative schedule for the Ducks, so between like 9:30 and 10:30, 10:45, right in there is where they have us slotted for Coach Lanning and all the players. So it's Dylan Gabriel, Terrence Ferguson, and Jeffrey Bassa are the players representing Oregon. All should be great interviews. So you guys you'll be handing off to Dusty, so both of you will get some cracks. So hopefully that schedule that we have from them does not get altered too much. So that's the plan. And then it'll be filling in around with some other players that hopefully we can find, and a few more pundits and national reporters that have you've heard on these airwaves for a number of years.
Absolutely. So good stuff from Swag. He is going to hop off, and then he'll just be behind the scenes. He'll help Danny and Dusty, who are going to hop on here in just a couple minutes. They're going to go from 10 to 3. So that's going to be how the media day goes. Who they get, when they get them, it's going to be wild and all over the place. But assume you got some Penn State, you got some USC, there's some Nebraska happening, maybe Michigan State leftovers or Iowa or whatever it ends up being the rest of the way. Danny and Dusty are going to have you covered coming up here at the top of the 10 a.m. hour. That is going to do it for us. We went an extra hour today.